I thought I had died on Earth in the 21st century, but when I opened my eyes, I found myself in a world brimming with dreams and hope. Or so I thought, until I realized I was lying naked on the ground, rolling around helplessly. What the heck was going on? As I struggled to comprehend the situation, someone's voice echoed sharply in my ears. Brothers and sisters, pick up your weapons and fight. Before our crazy father swallows us up again, a blond man, wielding a gleaming sword, shouted at the people around him. Scattered across the ground were spears and swords he had thrown down, and the other naked individuals quickly began arming themselves. Thanks, little brother. We almost ended up stuck in our father's belly forever. Swallowing your own children as soon as they're born. What kind of father does that? A young man with blue hair swung his sword at the so-called father, recklessly attempting to strike him down. The others joined in, attacking the towering figure who seemed impervious to their blows. We won't be swallowed so easily this time. Hiya! The father, staggering as if in a drunken stupor, glared at us with fierce, blazing eyes. Despite the relentless attacks, he seemed unharmed, his towering presence radiating power. The ground beneath us trembled from the clash of their superhuman battle. The sheer force of their movements and the deafening noise of weapons colliding created chaos all around. You dare to defy me, Kronos? And Métis, how could you betray me? Watching the fight, I realized something was very wrong. These were no ordinary humans. Their speed and strength were beyond anything I'd ever seen. The air shimmered with an otherworldly energy as weapons clashed, and the ground split beneath their feet. Brother in the back, help us fight. We're getting overwhelmed. You-ah! Clang! Clang! Caught in the chaos, I hesitated. Was I even capable of joining this fight? Whether I had reincarnated as a superhuman or something entirely different, it was clear that this father wasn't planning to leave me alone. Acting on instinct, I grabbed a spear from the ground and hurled it with all my might. Whoosh thud! Ugh! You little... Nice shot. You hit father's arm. Sorry, father, but you were attacking me first. Kronos pulled the spear from his arm, muttering something under his breath. Suddenly, an invisible energy rippled outward, distorting the world around us. Time. My body froze, unable to move. The energy weighed down on me like an oppressive force, bending the very fabric of reality. But as we resisted with all our might, the flow of time returned to normal. Freed from the paralysis, everyone resumed their assault. Kronos, unable to withstand the combined strength of his children, roared in frustration before retreating into the sky. Phew! Is it over? We would have been in big trouble if it weren't for the youngest. It's all thanks to Mother. She gave him a rock instead of me to swallow. Was that you? When that rock fell into his stomach, I thought Father had gone mad. Exhausted, the group collapsed onto the ground, catching their breath. The blond man stood up, brushing off the dirt. I am Zeus, the last child Mother bore. What are your names, brothers and sisters? I'm Poseidon, said the blue-haired man, still clutching his weapon. I'm Hera. Thanks to you, we're all alive. Thank you, added a woman with regal poise. One by one, the others introduced themselves. Call me Hestia. I'm Demeter. When their eyes turned to me, I knew what I had to say. One of Zeus's 6 siblings, the ruler of the underworld. Hades, I said. Later, in the underworld, I found myself entertaining an unexpected visitor. So what happened next? Please tell me the story of how Lord Zeus became the king of the gods and established Olympus. Persephone, the goddess of spring, looked at me with wide, eager eyes. Shouldn't you be heading back? Your mother's probably worried. Humph, not for a while. Mom is always overprotective. Persephone's radiant beauty and pure divine power felt completely out of place in the dark underworld. Watching her play around here felt oddly incongruous. Before Demeter's wrath descended, it seemed wise to send her back. I'm not going. Dear niece, please have some dignity. Should a goddess who governs one of the 4 seasons really behave like this? Of course, she only acted this way in front of me, her uncle. If mortals saw this side of her, They'd probably regret their existence. Thank you, Uncle Hades. Fine. I'll keep telling her stories until she tires herself out and goes back on her own. It turned out we were gods, not in a metaphorical sense, but actual deities from Greek mythology. Children of Kronos, the god of time, and Rhea, the earth goddess. Testing my newfound powers, I flexed my legs and leapt into the sky. The wind roared past as I soared upward, my body light and powerful. The world spread out beneath me, vast forests, rivers, and mountains that stretched to the horizon. Standing atop a cloud, I marveled at the beauty around me. The mortal world was breathtaking. Soft, white clouds floated in clusters, and below them, a tapestry of green and blue unfolded. Above me, countless stars sparkled against the velvety black sky. It felt like the entire universe was within reach. Hades, did you find anything up there? Perhaps one of Father's spies? Poseidon's voice called from below. Nothing yet, I replied, though I lingered a moment longer to savor the view. This world was unbelievably beautiful, and I wanted to protect it. To live here, breathe this air, and enjoy the life we had wrested from Kronos. For that, the Titans had to be defeated. And so, we fought. The war was long and brutal, but with allies like the Cenomanians and Cyclopes, we turned the tide. The Cyclopes forged powerful weapons, Zeus's thunderbolt, Poseidon's trident, and my helm of invisibility, the Kyne. Using these, we dismantled the Titans' power. Disarmed and blinded, the Titans fell one by one. Victory was ours, but peace was fleeting. Lord Hades, Thanatos, the god of death, is missing, and souls are no longer arriving in the underworld. Lord Apollo insists on meeting with you, something about heavenly melodies. A demigod is beating up Charon and heading this way. Lady Demeter demands Persephone's return, or she'll dry up the earth. The underworld had turned into a complaint office for every divine problem imaginable. Hearing the chaos outside, Persephone stood up, her earlier enthusiasm gone. Uncle Hades, you seem busy, so I'll just go. Go ahead. Don't come back too soon. The war with the Titans, later known as the Titanomachy, ended in our resounding victory. The dominion of the world now passed into our hands. Cenomanian's brothers, how many Titans did you three defeat? And what about this trident? My thanks to the Cyclopes for crafting such a magnificent weapon capable of causing earthquakes. No need to thank us. This is but a small reward for freeing us, Zeus, one of the Cyclopes replied with humility. The atmosphere was jubilant. The hard-fought war had come to an end, and it was time to divide the spoils, a natural response to victory. The first and most pressing matter was deciding who would govern the sea, the underworld, and the sky. Hera, Demeter, and Hestia quietly stepped back, observing the situation from the sidelines. I'm not interested, Hestia declared simply. Neither am I, Demeter agreed. You men can figure it out among yourselves, Hera added, waving them off. Perhaps it was because among us Poseidon, and Zeus were the strongest, or maybe they simply found the responsibility burdensome. Well then, it's about time we decide who governs where, Poseidon said, his voice tinged with anticipation. Let's draw lots to keep it fair. After all, who wouldn't want the sky? Zeus suggested, stroking his beard. I couldn't help but feel uneasy. What if I drew the lot for the sea or the sky? My knowledge of mythology would be completely overturned. Naturally, I should rule the sky, Zeus proclaimed, laughing triumphantly. TCH. I got the sea? Well, at least it's not the underworld, Poseidon muttered, his tone betraying his disappointment. I glanced down at the final lot in my hand. When had they drawn everything? Was this rigged? Poseidon and Zeus both looked at me with visible relief. Who would want to live in the gloomy underworld? After all, my younger brothers, brimming with ambition, would likely stage a rebellion rather than accept such a fate. Well, perhaps it was better this way. I sighed and accepted my role. Humming a light tune, I made my way to a suitable spot to descend into the underworld. As the newly appointed ruler of this domain, it was my responsibility to manage it. The meadow I chose was peaceful, filled with chirping birds and blooming flowers. Thunk! I stomped my foot, and black energy spread across the ground, creating a dark, descending path. The grass and trees withered instantly, and the surrounding life fled in haste. I twirled the helm of invisibility, the kaini, in my hand, observing the ominous passage before me. Shadows cloaked the seemingly endless pit as I descended further into the depths. The journey was long. Even insects disappeared as I delved deeper underground. Finally, after traversing a series of caverns, I emerged into a vast, open expanse. Though there was no sun, I could see clearly. A sinister mountain loomed ahead, and a darkened sky stretched over a vast river, the River Acheron, the first of 5 rivers encircling the underworld. The Acheron, later called the River of Woe, seemed deceptively tranquil. But the absence of life in its waters and the desolation of the surrounding mountains spoke volumes. After crossing the Acheron, I encountered the River Cocytus, the River of Lamentation. Its icy waters reflected my past self, locked in battle during the Titanomachy. Back to back with Zeus, I wielded the kaini and drove my sword into a Titan's stomach. The memory faded as I moved forward. Next came the Phlegethon, the River of Fire. Flames roared where water should have flowed, purifying souls with its infernal heat. Yet it didn't harm me. I walked unscathed along its fiery banks. The 4th river, Lethe, the River of Forgetfulness, held bitter waters. A single sip could erase a mortal's memories. Curious, I tried it once, finding its taste unpleasant but otherwise harmless. Finally, I reached the last river, the Styx, which marked the boundary between the living world and the underworld. As I approached, the water shifted, forming the figure of a beautiful goddess. "Welcome, Hades. I've been waiting for you," she said. Her name was Styx, the daughter of Oceanus and Tethys. She personified the river that encircled the underworld 9 times. For her aid during the Titanomachy, she was granted a unique privilege. Any oath sworn by her river would be binding. Even gods who broke such oaths faced severe consequences. "I swear by the river Styx that you look as stunning as ever, Lady Styx," I said with a teasing smile. "Umph. Flattery will get you nowhere," she replied, blushing slightly. Despite her protests, Lady Styx was as endearing as she was beautiful. Her flowing black hair and graceful demeanor contrasted with her sharp tongue. "Please stop swearing by my name over trivial matters," she scolded, tapping my forehead lightly with her finger. Her stern expression did little to hide her amusement. Teasing her was irresistible. "There you go again. Stop it. I was only joking. As the god of the underworld, you should maintain some dignity." Lady Styx had been a reliable ally during the war, and our shared affinity for dark powers created a bond between us. When she heard I would rule the underworld, she expressed genuine happiness at the prospect of having me as her neighbor. "You're one of the 3 great gods now. Act like it," she said with a playful sigh. After parting ways with Styx, I finally arrived at the heart of the underworld. The desolate landscape stretched endlessly before me. It was barren, lifeless, a blank canvas waiting to be shaped. "This is my domain," I murmured, surveying the wasteland. Determined, I focused my divine power. The ground rumbled, reshaping itself at my will. Minerals and gems surfaced, providing the materials needed to construct my kingdom. If Zeus was building a grand palace on Mount Olympus, I would create something equally majestic in the underworld. As the ruler of this domain, I couldn't settle for anything less. Rumble. The underworld trembled as it welcomed its new master. The once barren expanse began to transform, resonating with the divine power of its king. From her vantage point at the river Styx, the goddess watched the transformation unfold. The lifeless underworld now thrived under Hades' influence, the principles of life and death etched deeply into its fabric. "As expected, he's different now," Styx murmured, a hint of admiration in her voice. The playful god she had known during the war had become a true ruler, one of the 3 great gods who shaped the world. Above, Zeus reigned over the sky, and Poseidon commanded the sea. Below, Hades ruled the underworld and all its wealth. Styx propped her chin on her hand, observing the underworld's metamorphosis with quiet fascination. In the always boring depths of the earth, a kingdom was being born.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Rumble, it's almost done now. The underworld, which once had nothing, was now twisted and expanded according to my will, to the point where it was hard to recognize its previous appearance. With a touch of underworld aesthetic, or perhaps hipster aesthetic, a jet-black castle was reflected in my eyes. A fortress of steel made from the abundant metals found underground. But this isn't just ordinary steel. The metal infused with my power had turned pale and seemed to emit a cold, chilling aura. Looking at it, the walls gleamed with an unusual sheen, unlike any ordinary metal. Maybe I should call it an obsidian fortress. Creak. With a slight nod, the castle gate opened naturally. Well, not so naturally. I just made it, so why is it so stiff? And why does the sound of the gate opening have to be so eerie, like the wail of a ghost? As I walked inside the massive fortress, I began to make adjustments here and there as I saw fit. Fixing the sand scattered on the ground, the parts that had twisted because I miscalculated my strength, and so on. While I was busy making these adjustments, a visitor arrived in the underworld. Hades, walking towards me with steady steps, was a muscular male god with a single eye. No, it was a Cyclops. It was Arjesh, the Thunderbolt, one of the three Cyclops brothers who forged weapons for me, Zeus, and Poseidon. What business could have brought him all the way to this dark underworld to see me? Luckily, I found my way here. Demeter told me the location. The Cyclops are the children of Gaia, the goddess of the earth, and Uranus, the god of the sky. In terms of the divine lineage, they are of higher rank than us. But I heard that the three brothers decided to live leisurely on an island from now on. There was no need for him to come all the way to this gloomy underground. Could it be that he died and came to the underworld? Cyclops, despite being of high rank and powerful gods, strangely, have the concept of death, unlike us. So there's a possibility that the first resident of my underworld might be a Cyclops. So who killed you? Was it that brat Zeus? Just as I was about to start a fraternal war over the throne of the gods, he chuckled and answered, "Don't be ridiculous. We're blacksmiths, but we have some knowledge in building constructions like this. Since Poseidon and Zeus are building palaces, each of us brothers decided to lend a hand. Oh, bless the Cyclops, gods of service, who generously share everything they have. Silently, I worshipped him in my heart, but don't get your hopes up too much. I don't have the divine power of construction." The three Cyclops brothers inherited part of their father's divine power of the sky. Thunder, lightning, and thunderbolts aren't related to blacksmithing, so how they acquired such great skills is a mystery. As he looked around the palace I had just built, he gave me advice on various points. Indeed, with the advice of an expert in creation, the palace quickly transformed. And while it's good that you're using the kaini I made for you, I'd appreciate it if you took better care of it. It may not look like it, but it prefers to be kept clean. The Cyclops touched and examined my invisible helmet, the kaini, which was hanging in a corner. For reference, Arjesh, one of the three brothers, was the one who made my helmet. When I asked why he specifically made an invisible helmet, his answer was something else. He said he made a weapon that would suit my gloomy personality. Tisk, are you listening to me? And it likes it when you gently stroke it from the top of the helmet down to the bridge of the nose. This isn't an ego sword, or rather, an ego helmet, you know? The creator himself should know better, so why does he keep saying things like this? It might be an emotion that only blacksmiths understand, something I can't comprehend. Now that I think about it, I've always wondered, Poseidon and Zeus got weapons, so why did I get armor? I wanted to wield a cool weapon too, but all I got was an invisible helmet. It's a bit disappointing. SSS. Just a helmet? What's wrong with my kaini, which is my masterpiece that can hide you from the entire world? Oh no, did I speak my thoughts out loud again? I quickly calmed down the snorting, huffing Cyclops. Of course, I experienced the power of this helmet during the war. Even our father, Kronos, couldn't find me because of it. It's natural considering who made it. Do you know how much effort I put into creating that? But I still want a weapon. Ahem. You're a great god now, so stop whining. If I were to make a weapon for you, I'd have to make one for Poseidon and Zeus too. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I wanted to receive a weapon while I had the chance, but it couldn't be helped. From his perspective, if he made a weapon for me, he'd have to make one for Poseidon and Zeus as well, so there was nothing I could do. Arjesh took a few laps around the underworld I created and then left, smiling in satisfaction. I couldn't help but smack my lips as I watched Arjesh's back as he departed, after completely overhauling my palace, despite telling me not to expect too much since he wasn't a god of architecture. Hades, do you envy Zeus's thunderbolt or Poseidon's tridents? Styx, who had been seeing Arjesh off with me, whispered. Of course I was envious, but there was nothing I could do. Maybe later, I'll secretly visit the island where the 3 Cyclops brothers live and ask them to make something for me. If you sink it to the bottom of the river Styx, where the gods swear their oaths, and imbue it with power, a weapon worthy of you might be born. How about it? This offer was surprising. You do this for me? You're not even a blacksmith who finds fulfillment in making weapons, so why? When I asked the goddess Styx for her reasoning, she turned her head and spoke shyly. Then, would that clear my debt? Come to think of it, there was indeed one thing she might consider a debt. During the war, I saved Styx when she was nearly dragged away by countless titans surrounding her. Take one of the bronze swords made by the Cyclops, imbue it with your power, and hand it over to me. I'll bring it back to you when it's done. I handed the goddess Styx the bronze sword I had been using. She took my cherished sword and quickly descended into the depths of the river, disappearing from sight. The Cyclops didn't only make the thunderbolt, trident, and helmet. They also made weapons and armor for other gods, producing numerous failed creations. None of us agreed with the notion that these were failures, but the Cyclops, with their keen eyes, pointed out flaws. This seems like an excellent weapon. What are you talking about? This weapon is too weak to contain your divine powers. It would break after a few days of fighting against Kronos' scythe. Then why is this armor considered a failure? Try falling from the sky to the ground while wearing it. You'll find a scratch on it. Our father, Kronos' scythe, was the best weapon in the world, created by our grandmother Gaia from Adamus, diamond. To think that even a weapon that would break after days of fighting against something like that was considered a failure by their high standards. Yet they eventually succeeded. They managed to create 3 weapons that either rivaled or slightly fell short of Kronos' great scythe. The tide of the battle, which had been seesawing, turned in our favor that day, leading to our victory. And one of the so-called failures they casually created was the bronze sword I had just handed to Styx. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The horses of Helios, the sun god, pulled the sun chariot across the sky dozens of times from one end of the world to the other. And finally, Styx returned to the fortress in the underworld with my sword. It's all finished. Would you like to try swinging it? A single-handed sword, now dyed pitch black to match the god of the underworld. The bronze sword, which had endured at the bottom of the river Styx after receiving my power, seemed to have been reborn. As I ran my hand along the blade, which had no guard and consisted solely of the edge, the sword trembled slightly, as if recognizing its owner. Oh, it seems to have turned out even better than I expected. The unique texture of the handle, made from a special oak tree that grows near the top of Mount Olympus, clung to my hand. It was neither too light nor too heavy and felt just right. Whoosh! As the blade cut through the air from left to right, it sliced through the underworld's atmosphere in a way that I found very satisfying. As a test, I placed the finest of the finest, the kine, on the ground and brought the blade down on it, sparks flying from the impact. Clang! Hades, why are you testing the sword on that precious helmet? But it's the hardest thing I own, so I had no choice but to test it there. Huh. Really, all the gods of Olympus are a bit strange. Ignoring Styx as she muttered and covered her face with her hands, I carefully examined the blade. Any scratches or damage? None. The connection between the blade and the handle? Perfect. Powerful divine power permeability? Flawless. I wondered how long this blade could withstand the full power of a god. Just as I was about to concentrate my strength and strike the side of the blade, Styx stopped me. Ah, please don't do that. You'll ruin my baby. Baby? Huh? It's the same meaning as when the Cyclops call their masterpieces their babies. Baby sounds good. Then its name will be the Styx sword. Ugh. But to name it directly after me, ignoring the goddess Styx, who was mumbling and covering her face with her hands, I sheathed the sword at my waist. All right, your name is now Styx sword. Styx is me. This is the underworld, ruled by Hades, the god of the dead. A cold and dark place where deceased souls come to find rest. Due to the nature of the underworld's image, most gods also avoid this place, making it a very quiet realm. I quite like this underworld. The tranquility I feel when I close my eyes brings me peace rather than loneliness. However, there were some bad and wicked intruders who dared to invade Hades' sanctuary. As Mother Gaia said, the underworld does exist. Let's attack. Let's kill Hades, the king of the underworld, and liberate Tartarus, brothers of the Gigantes. Let's free the Titans. They were grotesque monsters with the lower body of a snake and the upper body of a human. These beings, who called themselves Gigantes, were undoubtedly sent by someone to attack us. From what they were shouting, it seems Grandmother Gaia is very displeased that we imprisoned the Titans in Tartarus. The Earth Goddess, who married the sky god Uranus and gave birth to our father Kronos, is not someone to be underestimated. She may not personally step forward to overthrow us, as she has a reputation to uphold, but I'm sorry, Hades. I just couldn't stop them with my power. A desperate voice from the goddess Styx echoed in my mind. The creatures rampaging through the underworld were all divine beings born from the power of Mother Gaia. With dozens of these hostile creatures swarming in, it was no wonder that the goddess Styx couldn't handle them. I sent her my thoughts, telling her to retreat to a quiet place for now. I'll go to Zeus and request reinforcements. If your brothers all gather, no matter how many of those creatures there are. Though I appreciated the goddess Styx's intentions, asking for help would be pointless. These creatures, who call themselves Gigantes, invaded the underworld on the orders of Grandmother Gaia. This means they likely attacked not only the underworld, but also the sea ruled by Poseidon and Mount Olympus, where Zeus resides. Then doesn't that mean the other gods are in danger too? That depends on how many there are. But you don't need to worry, Goddess Styx. The underworld will not fall to such creatures. The entrance to the underworld is narrow, and they must have underestimated me since I don't have powerful weapons like Poseidon or Zeus. It seems only a few dozen of them came. I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. Although they are divine beings, I didn't sense any immortality in them. They weren't even fighting on the surface, but had foolishly invaded my home ground. How is this any different from fighting Poseidon in the sea? I laughed heartily at these reckless worms. They had walked right into my domain, so I might as well kill them all and enslave their souls. Rising from my throne, I donned the invisible helmet, Kaini, which completely concealed my form from this world. I drew the sword forged in the river Styx, a symbol of the oaths that even gods must keep when sworn upon, and the embodiment of my promise. The darkness naturally clung to my body, forming armor as I climbed the fortress wall to observe the intruders. There were dozens of divine beings pounding on the gate with all their might. These were the Gigantes. Thud! Thud! I surveyed the half-god, half-snake giants, the Gigantes, as they pounded on the gate, and then quietly jumped down from the fortress wall. It would be easy to wipe them out using divine power or my authority, but they are beings as powerful as the Titans. I didn't know how many more enemies were outside the underworld, so it was wiser to conserve my energy and decapitate them one by one with the Styx sword. Just like this. Slash. Arcs. What was that? I was suddenly attacked. I didn't sense anything. I moved to a new position and slashed another Gigantes below the waist. Ignoring the bewildered expression on the fallen Gigantes, I turned my attention to the next enemy. There's no trace of him. Where is he, Hades? The Gigantes stood back to back, trying to guard all directions, but it was futile. These monsters seemed to have been born not long ago, and although they possessed great power, they didn't know how to use it. Brothers throw the stones from the ground, will splash blood to find his location. Maybe if they had experience surviving on the battlefield for a long time, but at this moment, they were just naive pups. For someone like me, who had years of experience in the war against the Titans, killing them was all too easy. How can this be? I checked this direction for sure. Art, my waist, my waist. Did they really think that something on par with Astria's Thunderbolt and the Trident could expose my location that easily? I whispered into the ear of a terrified Gigantes before piercing his heart with the Styx sword. Shall we start creating some minions now that there are enough corpses? Arise. Ugh, ugh. They're rising. The souls of the fallen brothers are rising. It's the power of the god of the underworld. We should have brought more of our brothers. The dead Gigantes were enveloped in black smoke, and only their white forms rose to attack the other Gigantes. All souls that come to the underworld belong to me, Hades. Even divine beings are no exception. Ah, please spare me. Our mother is Gaia. We are of the same bloodline. So what? You came here to kill me, and now you're begging for your life? The last remaining Gigantes was surrounded by translucent souls as I quietly removed my helmet, the Kaini. Wearing a helmet on my head is more uncomfortable than I thought. Especially this Kaini, which covers me in an intangible aura, making me feel as if my entire body is wrapped in something. The last intruder, who finally noticed me, trembled and begged for his life. Did you not anticipate this when you boldly invaded the underworld? W8. If you spare me, I swear I'll never return to the underworld. Slash. Splash. The passage of time turns even the soul of a weak 21st century modern human into a ruthless god of the underworld. The Gigantes who dared to step foot in the underworld without fear were all reduced to a handful of spirits. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Hades, you've killed all the invaders who came to the underworld. You may come out now. What on earth is going on? I ordered the souls of the Gigantes, now bound to obey only my commands, to clean up the sullied underworld, and I summoned the goddess Styx. Soon, a stream of water shot up from the river Styx, and the goddess Styx, bleeding from one arm, appeared before me. Phew, it really seems like Gaia wants war. It's possible that the Earth Mother has been quiet all this time, because she's been using her strength to create those Gigantes. This era has not yet established the 12 Olympian gods. No, it's not even an era with humans. Though my future knowledge and understanding of mythology are gradually fading from my mind, I still remember one thing. Just as Odin of Norse mythology prepares for the Ragnarok War, Zeus too is supposed to train human heroes who will aid us. However, there aren't many Olympian gods now, and there are no human heroes to side with the gods. Now is the perfect time for Gaia and the Titans to seize the opportunity for rebellion. I ordered the ghosts, who dreamed of foolishly sweeping away the underworld, to guard this place well and prepared to head to Olympus. In this situation, with the Gigantes invasion underway, the most urgent place is not the ocean where Poseidon wields invincible power, but the Olympian Palace. Are you heading to Olympus now? If so, let me come with you. I told her to stay here and protect the underworld, as the creatures might return. If Tartarus is breached, our defeat is certain, so someone must remain here. In that case, how about you stay and guard the underworld while I go? The Gigantes that gathered in the underworld are powerful divine beings, but only a few dozen. Grandmother Gaia must have known that they wouldn't be enough to defeat us. Surely hundreds, if not more, of the Gigantes are rampaging on Olympus. The only meaningful reinforcement that can impact the outcome of the battle is if I go there myself. Not that I have any expectations for that, Zeus, anyway. Be careful. I reassured the goddess Styx, who looked on the verge of tears, and crossed the 5 rivers surrounding the underworld to head to the surface. The warm sunlight and vibrant plants of the surface world, which I hadn't seen in a long time, greeted me, but the air was heavy. This was evidence that the massive war between gods was affecting the world. I must head to Mount Olympus quickly. Hurrying towards Mount Olympus, I saw countless Gigantes swarming the divine palace above the clouds. As I tried to join Zeus, a brilliant light and deafening roar erupted, sending some of the swarming Gigantes flying. Boom! Crash! Grass! Is this the lightning that Mother spoke of? The attack that just wiped out dozens of Gigantes was Zeus's lightning, a strape, and the giant brazier pouring out scorching heat from above must be Hestia's power. Like the technique from that ninja manga I saw in a previous life. The grass and trees that sprung up to bind the Gigantes were the power of Demeter. Ha! Quite a struggle, isn't it? Go on, try harder. Individually, our power was overwhelming, but the battle seemed evenly matched. Their numbers were vast, and the fact that each of them was a divine being played a role, but there was something else at work. Not just each individual Gigantes, but the collective entity known as the Gigantes was affected by a certain flow. Because of this, the gods, despite their overwhelming power, couldn't easily conclude the battle. I sent my thoughts to Zeus, who was scowling and preparing another bolt of lightning above the clouds. Zeus, can you hear me? Hades, brother, what brings you here? What about the underworld? The Gigantes that invaded the underworld have already been dealt with. I'll handle the western front of Olympus, so don't throw a strape this way. Thanks. Be careful. These creatures have incredible regenerative and healing powers. Olympus is grateful for your help. Zeus, you always said yes, sir, to this big brother, but now you speak so informally. Fine, you rule the sky, don't you? Setting aside thoughts of my insolent little brother, I swiftly moved through the battlefield. I focused on slowing the Gigantes' regeneration with the power of death and breaking their formation, which quickly began to collapse. There's something here. Gah! The assassin without a presence. Mother spoke of the death god, Hades. Does this mean all our brothers sent to the underworld were defeated? As more and more Gigantes were attacked and wounded by the invisible force, they began to recognize me. I intentionally removed my helmet and gave a cold smile, and they were thrilled, like fanatical fans meeting a celebrity. Hades, I'll kill you. You rat! Raising one hand in response to the passionate cheers from the Gigantes, I then put on my kine again. Disappearing from sight, I dodged as a burning oak tree slammed into the ground where I had just been. He disappeared again. Come out, you! Grah! Impatient, simple-minded, and only strong in regeneration and brute strength. These divine beings hadn't been defeated yet, likely due to fate. In Greek mythology, if something strange happens, it's usually because of fate. I'll have to talk to Zeus about it after the battle. And unlike when I fought them in the underworld, these creatures didn't die easily. I considered using my power to wipe them out in one fell swoop, but since this wasn't the underworld, the effect wouldn't be as strong as I'd hoped. Gah! In the end, I had to cut them down one by one with my sword. Leaving behind the Gigantes spewing blood, I set my sights on the next target. I circled around and drove my sword straight through its chest. I swung my sword wildly for what felt like an eternity. The Gigantes swung burning oak trees and hurled massive boulders, but nothing I couldn't dodge. Cutting off snake tails, stabbing arms wielding rocks, dodging attacks from Gigantes, guessing my position. Just as I was beginning to grow bored, another strange event disrupted the now stagnant battlefield. What? The ground is shaking. Is Mother Gaia angry? Rumble, rumble. Crack, crack. A small crack on the outskirts of the battlefield grew larger and larger. The Gigantes, absorbed in the heat of battle, finally sensed something was wrong. The vibrations increased, causing rocks to move on their own. The swaying of the grass escalated until massive oak trees were being uprooted. The ground began to shake more violently, as if it was about to erupt and overturn everything above it. I have arrived, Zeus. Poseidon, you've come at just the right time. This level of earthquake could only be caused by Poseidon's trident. The god of the sea had driven away the Gigantes that encroached upon his domain and come to aid Olympus. Poseidon's hearty laughter echoed across Mount Olympus as he drove his trident deep into the ground, and the Gigantes began to panic. I'm sinking into the ground. Let's retreat for now. Damn it, Zeus. We'll see you again. The countless Gigantes, who had demonstrated remarkable regenerative and combat endurance on land, found it increasingly difficult to fight amidst the massive earthquake and temporarily withdrew. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After the fierce battle with the Gigantes, I approached Zeus, who was wiping sweat from his forehead and catching his breath. I wanted to ask him and Poseidon about what Mother Gaia had created to drive us out, and if they knew anything more about this situation. There was a prophecy, Big Brother, a prophecy from the Fates. The Fates, also known as the Moirai, were the daughters of Nyx, the goddess of the night. Clotho, who spins the thread of fate, Lachesis, who determines the length of life by measuring and weaving the thread, and Atropos, who cuts the thread, ending life. These three goddesses, who appeared as old women, were absolute in their control over fate, and not even the gods could defy them. There was a prophecy that if we gods didn't borrow the strength of a great human hero, we wouldn't win this war. Humans? Was there such a race? If there is no race called humans, then we'll just have to create them. We should have Prometheus, who sided with us, create humans in our image. That might explain why the ones who came to the sea were so confident. It could be due to the influence of the prophecy, and those Gigantes were born when Grandmother Gaia conceived them from the blood that came from Uranus when he was castrated by Kronos. They're not immortal, but they wield divine power. We should be cautious. Even so, they can't measure up to us Olympian gods. We all decided to sit down in the divine palace of Olympus to discuss detailed countermeasures. There were suggestions to visit the Fates again to try and twist the prophecy slightly, or to persuade Grandmother Gaia. For now, let's focus on creating this human dot. We could also consider creating other life forms. There are far too few of us gods. At this rate, we're bound to lose. We don't know when they'll invade again, but it will surely be with a number far beyond what we face today. Was it around this time that Zeus, who still seemed rational, began to turn into a mad rapist? With the prophecy about the human hero and the realization that there weren't enough gods to sustain the war effort. Well, I hope he doesn't resort to incestuous rape to boost our numbers. As the meeting dragged on, I exchanged a few words with the other gods and was about to leave for the underworld when someone stopped me. Hades, just a moment over here. Turning my head in response to the small hand tugging at my clothes, I saw a petite goddess. It was Hestia, the goddess of the hearth and home, with her chestnut-brown bobbed hair suiting her well. She was poking at the logs in the hearth with a poker, watching me intently. She had been sitting quietly in the corner during the gods' meeting without offering any opinions. What could she want now? I looked around cautiously and then sat beside her. Could we perhaps build a hearth in the underworld? The underworld and a hearth, what a truly odd combination. Regardless of my personal feelings, this was an act that could infringe upon another god's domain. From what I've observed, Hestia isn't a thoughtless or rude deity. To bring a symbol of the home into the underworld, what could she be thinking? I looked at her with curiosity, and she spoke shyly. Well, it's just that. They said they're going to create life forms other than us gods, right? That's right. We need a human hero to win the war. And many other life forms will likely be created to sustain human survival. Zeus dislikes having his authority challenged, so the newly created beings won't be immortal. Will they? Of course. As the king who rules the sky, Zeus would ensure his authority is unchallenged. I'm not particularly interested in power, but it seems Poseidon has accumulated quite a bit of resentment. The new life forms will likely be created as mortals without immortality, so as not to threaten Zeus's authority. That's how it went in mythology, and this world won't be much different. So, as your subjects increase, I want to give some comfort to the unfortunate souls who end up in the underworld, who might be trembling in fear. We do not experience death. The Greek gods aren't perfect absolutes, but we are at least eternal. However, she is a benevolent and gentle goddess, closer to rewarding than punishing, to compassion than indifference. Hestia, who felt sympathy for the trees swept away by Poseidon's earthquake, seemed to have considered the concept of death for living beings. Couldn't you do something, even just for the entrance? Even though they lose all their memories at the river Lethe, the fear of the underworld must be etched into their souls. As I hesitated, she clasped her hands together and pleaded, "Well, if it's just the entrance outside the fortress, I suppose it's fine." As I slowly nodded, a flush of red appeared on her cheeks, and she smiled brightly. "Thank you for granting my request. Next time, I'll visit the underworld myself and build the hearth." The underworld might not be as gloomy as I thought. The gods, after the war with the Titans, had the Titan Prometheus, who foresaw the future and surrendered, create a species called humans. And his brother, Epimetheus, created various living creatures such as pigs, horses, birds, and many others that I am familiar with. So, what was I, Hades, the king of the underworld, doing at this crucial turning point in the world? Lately, the number of souls passing over the river Styx has increased significantly. Hades, isn't it clear that the most important thing is humans? Going after all the other living beings as well makes my workload too overwhelming. Ask Hypnos, the god of sleep, to help out a bit. Once the underworld is stabilized, we'll focus solely on bringing in humans. I was busy organizing the underworld due to the numerous deaths of these newly created beings. The underworld isn't just a place for humans. As countless souls who reached the end of their lives flooded into the underworld, my work as its overseer became significantly more burdensome. If until now I had lived a leisurely divine life, this meant that from now on, I had to seriously manage as the king of the dead. All kinds of newly born creatures were dying far too easily. The creatures, thrown into nature by the gods, began a fierce struggle for survival. And Thanatos, the god of death who brings souls to the underworld, complained of exhaustion. He, who had suddenly become the busiest worker in the underworld, began sending countless shadows, his clones, to bring the souls of the dead, filling the underworld with souls. At one point, there were even souls waiting in the underworld for reincarnation. Fortunately, this was a problem that time could solve. After some time, the newly born creatures would learn wisdom from their surviving ancestors, and they would be able to live longer than they do now. Hades, lately I've been wondering if it would have been a wiser choice to side with Kronos instead. Please hold on, I'm struggling too. Still, for the time being, it's a tough time for some of the gods. The personified death, Thanatos, had become gaunt and worn out, with sunken eyes from controlling countless clones of himself. His once lustrous wings had turned brittle, and it seemed as though his strong, black feathers were starting to fall out, although that might just have been an illusion. Can it really be that an immortal god, even the son of Nyx, might collapse from overwork? Hearing such words from the king of the underworld is quite terrifying. Please don't joke like that, even in jest. Thanatos made a grim face and sighed at the same time. Oops, I accidentally voiced my thoughts again. The underworld is so desolate that I've developed a habit of talking to myself. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After a long time, the cycle of life and death finally normalized, and peace returned to the underworld. We cheered in celebration. Although it wasn't an extraordinarily long time from the perspective of the immortal gods. Finally, the animals had adapted to their environment, and humans had formed groups so they no longer died as easily as before. Though it was a short period, the work that felt like hell, Tartarus, was now finally nearing its end. If only Zeus hadn't created Pandora and sent all sorts of diseases and harmful things to the mortal world, our work would have been much easier. Or at least, he could have made Prometheus work as a slave in the underworld as punishment for giving fire to humans. Honestly, I think it was too harsh to have him tormented by an eagle eating his liver just for sharing a bit of fire. Thanks to that, humans sometimes offer sacrifices to us. Because of Pandora's box, which Zeus unleashed upon the world, the underworld was in a state of overflow for a while. At the very least, couldn't Athena, the goddess of wisdom, have been sent down occasionally to help? Anyway, after a long time, we finally had some leisure, so we held a modest party in the underworld. Thanatos, Hypnos, the goddess Styx who helped with the underworld's work, and many other gods all gathered inside the fortress of the underworld to enjoy nectar and ambrosia. In one corner of the banquet hall, a few souls were working hard, playing the lyre that humans had made, while the attendants were busy serving drinks and food. I sat at the head table, sipping nectar and secretly cursing Zeus in my mind. Ding! Dingling! Gulp, gulp! Phew! Finally, I can relax a bit. It's a relief that our stories have spread widely among humans, making the work of my clones easier when fetching souls. As you say, these days, when humans die and see my wings, they mostly resign themselves to their fate. Did you know? The drink of the gods, nectar, doesn't have just one flavor. When it enters your mouth, it has a refreshing, smooth, cool, and sweet taste all at once. A truly strange sensation. Pwah! The nectar tastes even better today. I guess that's why that nagging goddess Styx is drinking it down so furiously. Ambrosia, the food of the gods, is even more unique. It tastes exactly like what the eater most wants to eat at the moment. For me, it tasted like the pork belly I used to eat in my previous life. Now that I'm getting tired of the pork belly, it tastes like sweet chocolate chip cookies. Hades. Do humans offer many sacrifices to you as well? The goddess Styx, who was drinking nectar beside me, brought up the subject of humans. I heard that there are now human nations on the surface. The stories of the Olympian gods have spread widely, and there are even humans who occasionally invoke my name when offering sacrifices. Shall I take a moment to listen to what the humans are saying? I momentarily listened. Hades, Lord Hades, why did you take my mother from me? Why? O god of wealth, Pluto, accept these animals and grant me a sliver of your blessing. Lord Hades, please, please don't take me. Close your eyes and open them, and you shall see Hades standing before you. Die. The surface world is still a mess. I remembered the face of a devout follower who offered me dozens of cattle that he had raised, and then I closed my ears again. My other name is Pluto, the bountiful one, the god of wealth. There are humans who worship me as the god of wealth, likely because of the human belief that the underworld is a place of great riches. After all, the underworld is overflowing with precious jewels and minerals that are highly valued by humans. Moreover, I possess the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, which is why I hold the title of the god of wealth. This magnificent item allows its owner to reach inside and pull out an endless amount of food and treasures, whatever they desire. It's the perfect tool for a god of wealth. But what's the point? I'm not human, so it doesn't mean much to me. Hades, please stop clinging to me. Oh goddess Styx, you've had too much nectar. O lord of the underworld. A report, a soul, who had been standing guard with a spear, quietly approached me and whispered. This male soul, who had lived for about 30 years before dying, had chosen to stay here instead of being reincarnated, and as such he was assigned a role like this. I thought that very few souls would choose the underworld, but perhaps because they forget their memories of the living world after passing through the river Lethe, the number is higher than expected. Of course, since the balance of reincarnation must be maintained, I can't grant everyone's wish. I pushed aside the goddess Styx, who was demonstrating the great power of nectar, strong enough to intoxicate even the gods, and listened to what the soul had to say. Right now, the goddess Iris, the goddess of the rainbow, has arrived in the underworld. She says she's here to deliver a message from a higher power. As soon as the spectral soldier conveyed this message, the modest celebration came to a halt. The goddess Styx, who seemed to have sobered up completely, Thanatos, Hypnos, and all the other gods who had been helping the underworld's work, stopped eating their ambrosia and fixed their sharp gazes on me. Could it be just when I was finally getting some rest? It couldn't be, could it? Oh, Zeus, please! The door to the banquet hall opened, and soon, a goddess with beautiful light blue hair and white wings entered. She emitted a soft, rainbow-colored aura. Under normal circumstances, some might have been mesmerized by the beauty of this goddess, who even Zeus coveted, but in this place, there was only tension in the air. It has been a long time since I last saw the Lord of the Underworld. I am Iris, the goddess of the rainbow. Iris, the goddess of the rainbow, is a messenger who conveys the will of Zeus and Hera. However, since she usually delivers Hera's messages rather than Zeus's, there is still some hope. Lord Zeus has decided that the time has come to punish the corrupt humans with a great flood. All of a sudden, punishment of corrupt humans, great flood, most humans die, underworld population surge, death by overwork. The minds of the gods present quickly processed the situation. The conclusion reached by their superior intellects was that from now on, there would be not just a lot of work, but an overwhelming amount. Hypnos, could you put me to sleep? I swear by the river Styx that you will not close your eyes until the flood is over. I'm afraid I won't be able to help this time, Hades. With that, I'll take my leave. Oh, Zeus, please no. Tartarus, I guess I'll have to open it? I seriously considered a coup. Hades, my lord, the souls under my care are complaining of exhaustion. Even if it is Lord Zeus, how can he not consider the opinion of the underworld? Do the gods above the clouds have no regard for the underworld? In an instant, the banquet hall of the underworld had turned into a forum for criticizing Olympus' decisions, causing the face of the beautiful goddess of the rainbow to grow pale. I looked around at the gods gathered here, the lower deities who guide the souls crossing the river Styx and manage the underworld, and Thanatos, the god of death, who tirelessly works day and night to collect the countless souls. Thanatos' twin brother, Hypnos, the god of sleep, who assists with the collection of souls by bringing deep sleep when requested by his brother. Isn't death by the great flood an unavoidable, fated death, Moros? What are you talking about? Most humans will be destroyed, so it's your domain, Charis. Moros and Charis, children of Nyx and other deities of death, like Thanatos. What if too many souls flood and the river runs dry? Lethe, the goddess of forgetfulness, granddaughter of the night goddess Nyx. The name of the river Lethe was derived from her. Is this the reward for being the first to rush into battle in the war against the Titans? Lord Zeus is too much, and even the goddess Styx, who voluntarily stepped up to help with the overwhelming workload of the underworld, couldn't hold back her frustration. Having been assigned the unfamiliar task of paperwork, she looked at me with tearful eyes. Though I am the king of the underworld, I cannot ignore the hard work and grievances of these deities. I closed my eyes and raised one hand quietly, and everyone fell silent. I began organizing my thoughts on what to say to the frozen Iris in front of me. Goddess of the rainbow, Iris, command me, Lord Hades. I looked down at Iris, who had knelt on one knee, clearly intimidated by my deep voice. Why did Olympus fail to inform me in advance about the great flood? That is, the humans' wickedness escalated so quickly that there was no time to give you notice. No, Zeus sent Pandora's box in the first place to create an excuse to wipe out humanity. Ever since Pandora's box was opened, evil has spread across the earth, and the number of souls coming to the underworld has rapidly increased. Knowing Zeus' petty nature, he likely premeditated punishing humanity as a form of retribution for Prometheus stealing fire and sharing it with them. And Pandora was created to ensure that humans would engage in wickedness, providing him with that excuse. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Managing the souls that come to the underworld is naturally our responsibility, so we have no complaints about the increased workload due to the Great Flood. However, it's displeasing that Olympus decided to wipe out humanity without consulting me. Even if Zeus is the king of the gods, must such important matters be communicated to the underworld as mere notifications rather than discussions? Go back and tell Zeus that the underworld expresses deep regret over Olympus' decision. When I finished speaking, Iris' face stiffened. Do you have anything else to convey? Goddess of the rainbow. Nothing at all. I will convey your message as you have spoken, Lord Hades. As I spoke, I felt a slight irritation, and in my frustration, I inadvertently released my power, causing the ground to crack and a gloomy divine aura to emanate from my body. It seemed I had taken out my anger on the messenger unnecessarily, so I controlled my expression and formally dismissed her. Zeus, who is sensitive to his authority, will surely understand my intentions. The goddess Iris bowed deeply and left the banquet hall. Only then did the other gods, who had paused the feast, begin moving to prepare for the impending overflow of the underworld due to the Great Flood. We should secure additional places to stay until life is restored after the great flood. Thanatos, take it easy until the flood arrives. I'll help with the soul-collecting duties. You're the only one I can rely on. Thank you, Hypnos. Carice, let's get to work. Moros, put down the nectar in your hand and speak. Will you? What displeased me the most was that Iris had conveyed the news of the great flood without consulting me, the king of the underworld, in advance. If such a disaster as the great flood strikes without warning, the underworld's officials will feel as if they were struck by lightning out of a clear sky. Had they consulted with the underworld beforehand, we could have deployed souls in shifts, or at least given them some warning to prepare themselves mentally. The more I think about it, the more it annoys me. I went to Olympus myself to help during the battle against the giants last time too. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. This is the palace of Olympus. Zeus, seated on his golden throne above the clouds, was listening to Iris' report. When Iris, a fairly high-ranking deity, returned to Olympus looking pale and terrified, Zeus was puzzled, but as he listened to her report, he understood. And so, Lord Hades is extremely angry and has expressed deep regret over Olympus' decision. Oh no, I completely forgot about my brother. Why did I fail to consider Hades, who manages the dead souls? As he watched Iris break out in a cold sweat, Zeus was now pondering how to handle this situation. Hades felt justified in feeling slighted when the decision to bring about the great flood was made without consulting the underworld. If it were another weaker and less influential god who defied or complained about his decision, Zeus could simply crush them with his authority. However, when it comes to one of the three major gods who governs the underworld and resides near Tartarus, where the Titans are imprisoned, it was necessary to proceed with caution. Though Zeus rules the sky and is called the king of the gods, he wasn't without those who could check his power. Zeus, have you run off after another goddess again? His wife and sister, Hera, who had just flown in and crossed her arms in a fury, was one such person. No, it's a misunderstanding. While I might glance at other women now and then, there is no one truly worthy to sit beside this Zeus, but you. Glance at other women? Gore, were you just trying to seduce Iris again? Hera, Zeus' lawful wife, governed over marriage and family. No matter how much Zeus was the king of the gods, when it came to infidelity, he had to back down to her. No, this time it's truly a misunderstanding. I was just discussing the great flood with my brother Hades in the underworld. The king of the gods broke out in a cold sweat as he tried to explain himself. However, as Hera listened, her frown deepened. Is it any wonder that someone who spends all day thinking about seducing goddesses would forget the simple wisdom of listening to the opinions of other gods? It was indeed my mistake. But how should I appease the underworld? If you're having trouble making decisions, why don't you consult the daughter of Métis? The daughter of Métis. Of course, Iris, go and bring Athena. Métis was Zeus' cousin and first wife, who fed a potion to Kronos to make him regurgitate the gods. Her marriage to Zeus led to the birth of Athena, the goddess of wisdom. The prophecy that a son born from Métis would threaten Zeus' throne was averted when a daughter, Athena, was born instead. Athena, being a wise goddess, reassured Zeus, who feared that the prophecy might extend to her future offspring, by swearing by the river Styx to remain a virgin forever. Only then did Zeus abandon all suspicion and came to love and cherish her greatly. Father, you called for me. Not long after, a rainbow appeared before Zeus, and Iris and Athena walked out from within it. As always, Athena was clad in her golden, sturdy helmet, armor, and armed with a spear and shield. Despite this, the radiant beauty of the silver-haired goddess could not be hidden. Zeus posed his question to the noble and wise goddess. Thus, I need your wisdom. If you have any good advice, please share it. After listening to Zeus' story, Athena pondered for a moment before speaking. To what extent are you willing to go to calm our uncle's anger? If I could judge that, I wouldn't have called for you. Speak freely. At Zeus' words, the armored goddess of wisdom cautiously expressed her opinion. Both Hera and Iris quietly watched her, awaiting her words. It would be best if you, Father, personally descend to the underworld and apologize this time. What? This Zeus, personally? Instead of sending a messenger god like Hermes or Iris. The king of the gods was taken aback, but he decided to listen to his cherished firstborn. However, the goddess of wisdom said nothing more after that. Why aren't you saying anything else? My beloved daughter, I apologize. I was just pondering over this situation where the wickedness of humans has escalated to such an extent that they must be destroyed by a great flood. The wickedness of humanity had been intentionally provoked by Zeus himself through Pandora's box. Their extreme misbehavior provided Zeus with the justification he needed to bring about the great flood. However, there was no need to mention that here. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, was not so foolish as to lose herself in other thoughts in front of her father, the chief god, which meant better to take what might seem an excessive measure before a major problem arises. Is that what you mean to say? Athena remained silent, lowering her head. The impending great flood would certainly align with Zeus' intentions, as humanity had crossed the line, providing him with the necessary justification. But what if Hades, due to this incident, harbored resentment and eventually raised a revolt against him? Up until now, Zeus had known his eldest brother as someone who wouldn't start a fight over a trivial matter. Yet, hearing that Hades was furious through Iris, it was clear that as the king of the underworld, he was protesting to Olympus. Zeus couldn't afford to lose the support of not just Hades, but also the other gods of the underworld. His throne could be at risk, especially considering the importance of Tartarus near the underworld. Are you still hesitating, Zeus? Don't tell me you have time to chase after women, but no time to appease the underworld. Hera's words drove the final nail into Zeus' contemplation. Very well. I shall go myself to meet with my brother Hades and have an honest conversation with him. Come to think of it, it's been a while since I last saw my brother in the underworld, so this will be a good opportunity to catch up. The underworld, ruled by Hades, was as busy as ever today, especially now, as all the gods were fully mobilized in preparation for the great flood that would soon sweep across the surface. When the flood begins, the small creatures in the lowlands will be the first to die. Looking at this list, the first city we should visit is the ferryman Sharon on the Acheron River will have a hard time. We should have the souls vacate this section and move their places. The desperate efforts of the underworld's administrators to prepare for the sudden surge in population. And I, Hades, who receives all the reports and handles the operations, allocating and judging the souls that would come to the underworld due to the great flood, arranging space for them in the underworld, managing the subordinate gods, distributing roles efficiently, and devising measures to prevent various issues in the underworld. There was almost nothing that didn't require my attention. I had to manage everything while ensuring that I didn't overstep into the domains of other gods. Now I understood why there were so few stories about Hades in the fading knowledge of 21st century Greek mythology. Hades, if we expand the underworld's boundaries toward the Elysian fields. How about recruiting more ferrymen to help Sharon? Perhaps it would be better to request support from Olympus. With so much work, it was impossible to leave the underworld. By the way, the Elysian fields is a paradise where those who accomplished remarkable deeds or showed great virtue during their lives reside after death. The majority of souls who do not qualify for this will reside in my underworld. Despite being underground, the Elysian fields is a mysterious place filled with sunlight, plants, and animals, like any ordinary meadow in the living world. Souls who enter there live in a meadow blessed by the gods, pursuing what they desire and experiencing spiritual fulfillment that surpasses any material pleasure. In simple terms, you can think of it as the ancient Greek version of heaven. Hades, Zeus. Lord Zeus has come to the underworld. I must have misheard. It seemed like the soul that rushed into my office had said Zeus was outside. Lord Zeus has arrived in the underworld, accompanied by Iris, the goddess of the rainbow. I had conveyed my displeasure through Iris earlier, but for Zeus, with his enormous pride, to come all the way here? At a nod from me, the doors to my office opened, and a familiar golden-haired god appeared, ushered in by the soul guards. It was Zeus, coming in with an awkward expression, coughing as if to clear his throat, with the goddess of the rainbow, Iris, following him cautiously. Hem, hem. It's been a while, hasn't it, Brother Hades? He really did come down to this dark place himself. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. For the king of the gods to personally come to the domain of one of the other three major gods and offer an apology. Could his power be unstable right now? Or is something happening on Olympus? It was my mistake not to inform you about the flood in advance. I was too focused on punishing those shameless humans to remember to consult with you, brother. I gestured for Zeus to take a seat in the chair opposite me. Now that he'd come to apologize in person, my anger was starting to subside. I had no intention of disrespecting the authority of the underworld. As a token of my apology, I prepared a few things. As a token of apology? First, during the flood, I'll send some servants from Olympus and my daughter Athena to help with the overwhelming workload in the underworld. Oh, this is quite good news. The goddess of wisdom is more than capable of handling a massive workload. She can certainly manage the underworld's overwhelming tasks. And never again will the life of the mortal world be extinguished by Olympus alone, without consulting the underworld. That goes without saying. I swear this on the river Styx. I was nodding casually, feeling appeased by the fact that Zeus had come all the way to the underworld to apologize, when I suddenly froze. A vow sworn by the river Styx is absolutely binding, even for gods. Well, it seems he's genuinely reflecting. No matter how much one criticizes Zeus, he does know when to swallow his pride as the king of the gods. Of course, the fact that I'm not just some insignificant lower god likely contributed to his decision. And how about we share a drink of nectar? We have much to catch up on after so long. I chuckled and cleared some documents from my desk. Iris, quick to take the hint, produced ambrosia and nectar from the rainbow and excused herself. All right, let's have a drink after so long. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. As Zeus and I drank nectar and conversed in my office, whispers could be heard throughout the underworld. Mostly, it was the lower deities, administrators, and souls of the underworld murmuring. Goodness, Lord Zeus is in the underworld. Even though he's Hades' brother, were they really this close? There won't be any sudden lightning strikes, right? It seems that my words to Iris must have lit a fire under him, for him to rush here and gauge the sentiments in the underworld. So, other gods besides me expressed dissatisfaction with the flood. Poseidon is really the main issue. He seems to be eyeing my position, and this time too subtly. Listening to Zeus vent, I took a sip of ambrosia. Even though he gained a justification for wiping out the surface through Pandora, it seems there were some gods who doubted or opposed the great flood. I spoke to Zeus, who was now lamenting his situation. Is there really a need to cling to the position of king of the gods? Why do you and Poseidon care so much about being the ruler of Olympus? Could it be that Brother Hades also covets this position? Zeus' eyes momentarily sharpened, but I casually took a sip of nectar, unfazed. You know me, and I know you. There's no reason to harbor unnecessary suspicion. It was probably just a joke. A joke. But isn't it interesting that you, too, know the view from the Olympus throne? I'm rather fascinated that you're so indifferent to power. The view from Olympus looking down on everything from above the clouds. Zeus, Poseidon, and I, along with the other three gods, all saw that view before we fought the Titans. It truly was overwhelming. Perhaps this is what the scenery of an omnipotent being would be like, a sense of omnipotence and elation, as if the entire world was in my grasp. It was one of the reasons I decided to fight the Titans. But if you ask why I'm different from Poseidon, despite having the power and position to challenge that throne, if I were to ascend to the golden throne of Olympus, I would no longer be able to stay here. Olympus is much better than this dreary underworld. Do I need to explain further? If I were to seize the throne of the gods and move to Mount Olympus, many things would change. For one, I wouldn't be able to frequently see Styx, the goddess who kindly forged my sword. Thanatos, who tirelessly reaps souls every day, wouldn't follow me to Olympus. Hypnos, Moros, Carice, and Lethe, the goddess of forgetfulness, who assist with the underworld's duties, wouldn't either. Lastly, all the people living in the underworld who follow my rule would have to be left behind. Costeris, the guard who always watches over my office door, refused to be reincarnated despite having his memory erased after suffering an unjust death in the mortal world. Nerdis, the woman who pours nectar beside me at every underworld feast, died tragically at the hands of wicked thugs. At that point, Zeus interrupted me. Perhaps he was getting bored listening to tales of human woes. However, the golden god stroked his beard and nodded, as if he had come to some realization. For the first time in a long while, Zeus displayed the true nature of a god-king. His regal demeanor briefly surfaced. I see. Now I understand. Brother, you don't covet the throne of the gods because you're already a true king. He's right. I am the king of the underworld. Becoming the most powerful among the gods is nothing compared to fulfilling my duties or caring for my people in my current position. Maybe I've grown fond of this dark, dreary place. And if you've only just realized that now, why don't you, as the king of the gods, stop behaving like a rogue, indulging in rape? And it's not just rape. How many times have you been unfaithful? Yet, you still want to hold on to your power? I subtly conveyed these thoughts in a more gentle manner. Well, I have a duty to ensure the prosperity of the Olympian gods, after all. And honestly, I still can't get Iris' lovely figure out of my mind. Zeus shook his head with a feigned, stern expression, but his eyes were full of lecherous intent as he spoke about Iris' body. Aren't you afraid of Hera, Zeus? You always talk about the prosperity of the Olympian gods, but isn't that just an excuse to satisfy your own desires? Otherwise, why would you have relationships with your sisters and other relatives? Why are you looking at me like that? The scoundrel avoided my gaze with an uneasy look. Should I just Uranus him? After finishing his story, Zeus vanished in a flash of lightning. Only then did I call on the gods who had been waiting outside the office. Zeus has left, so you may all come in. Both Zeus and I knew that there were many curious about our conversation, but we didn't pay it any mind. Using divine power, we had blocked the sound from reaching outside. Hades, could it be that even after the flood, our work will increase? Did Lord Zeus give you any additional orders? I calmly explained to their anxious faces. Zeus had sworn by the river Styx that he would never again sweep the earth without consulting the underworld. And during the great flood, he promised to send the goddess of wisdom, Athena, along with her attendants to assist the underworld. Phew! It's a relief amidst the misfortune. We were already worried about the workload, but if it's the goddess Athena, the atmosphere in the underworld became warm and friendly again. Sighs of relief were heard all around, and the gods dispersed with slightly brighter faces. It was 3 days before the great flood began. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The day of the great flood. With a solemn voice, Zeus, the king of the gods, called upon Boreas, the god of the north wind who had enormous wings. Boreas, from now on, do not stir the wind and stay in the cave of Aeolus for 9 days. I will hear no objections. I will follow your will. Boreas entered the cave of Aeolus, the wind god who traps the winds, and ceased his duties. As a result, the rain clouds filling the sky would never dissipate. Next, Notice, the god of the south wind, stood before Zeus. Being the god who symbolized the summer south wind and rain, he was always soaked. Notice, until I tell you to stop, pour down rain as much as you desire. It is fine if all the lands are submerged. Notice, whose body and wings were dripping wet, received Zeus' command and touched the clouds in the sky. Soon, accompanied by thunderous roars, a torrential downpour began on the earth. Shwa, the goddess of the rainbow, Iris, who had already received instructions from Hera, fetched water from the Milky Way to add moisture to the clouds. The day when the rain clouds dry up would be when the command of the goddess Hera is withdrawn. Hermes, inform Poseidon that the time has come. Athena, descend to the underworld with the selected attendants and assist Hades. Hermes, the messenger god, carrying the caduceus, a staff entwined with 2 snakes, and dressed as a light traveler, swiftly flew to the sea. He was the son of Zeus and also the god of thieves and travelers. For the next 9 days, if any god aids the beings of the earth out of personal feelings, they should be prepared to face the consequences. Flashboom! Zeus' final shout, imbued with his power, resounded through the divine palace of Olympus along with the sound of thunder. Hearing the cry, many gods were too afraid to act rashly. Who would dare to stop the king of gods when he has decided to punish humans? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Upon receiving a visit from Hermes, the messenger of Zeus, Poseidon raised a massive wave that overturned the earth. The human villages along the coast were submerged to the bottom of the sea in an instant. Next, he summoned all the river gods. The great sea god's command to the river gods was simple. Open all the floodgates and let the waters flow as they please. Among them, some river gods cherished humans, but they could not defy Poseidon's order and open the floodgates. The life forms near the rivers were swept into the deep waters in an instant. Then, when Poseidon's trident struck the earth, the immense power opened up all the water channels. A terrifying flood engulfed the entire world. In this sudden calamity, human villages, temples, orchards, and fields were reduced to unrecognizable ruins. Humans desperately crawled up to the mountaintops, trying to survive the wrath of the gods. Zeus, oh Zeus, why are you doing this? I don't want to meet Hades yet. What have we done wrong? I have offered so many sacrifices to Poseidon until now. Gurglei, I'm not ready. Those who escaped drowning felt relieved for a moment, only to soon lament in a world turned into a sea. Weak as they are, humans die within days if they miss a few meals and don't drink water. The only ones smiling amidst the flood were the sea nymphs, the Nereids. No human could endure the great flood that lasted for 9 days. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Around the time when there was no more land left in the world, the underworld was busier than ever. An uncountable number of souls flowed across the 5 rivers that marked the boundary between the underworld and the living world, surging into Hades' stronghold. Hades, sir, the area where souls are gathered can no longer. Let's see. Beside Elysium, isn't it? I'll take care of it right away, so have them receive the souls elsewhere for now. Charon's ferry has sunk, and souls have fallen into the Acheron River. Send a messenger to the goddess Lethe to rescue the souls and have her assist us. Hades, in my office, was in a state where even 3 bodies would not suffice. With one hand, I was reviewing reports from various parts of the underworld on parchment. The other hand was busy wielding authority throughout the underworld, judging, assigning, and passing verdicts on souls. My eyes were darting around, surveying the entire underworld. My mouth was drying up as I responded to the reports from the messengers. And then I heard the news I had been waiting for. The goddess Athena has arrived with her attendants from Olympus. Send the attendants to the goddess Styx outside, and have Athena come here immediately, quickly. Soon, Athena, clad in full armor and holding a spear, opened the office door and saluted. Greeting my great uncle, Hades, lord of the underworld. If you're here, sit down and get to work quickly. I glanced at Athena before turning my attention back to the mountain of scrolls piling up in front of me. Of course, it was only natural to move half of the work stack to the ceiling over to Athena. What's this? We don't need the god of war for paperwork, so take off that armor already. Athena, as the goddess of war, wisdom, and civilization, seemed to realize what was about to happen to her. With a resigned smile, she began to take off her armor and sat down in front of me. Outside the office, the sounds of gods shouting, the busy movement of souls, and the murmurs of the underworld could be heard. Fortunately, with the goddess of wisdom joining the battle against paperwork, we were sure to win. After being buried in a pile of scrolls for a long time, Athena finally spoke up cautiously. Uncle, if you lend me your name, I have a way to get us out of this mess. If the goddess of wisdom says so, there's no harm in it. Go ahead. I saw Athena doing something after her suspicious remark, but I ignored it since there was too much work to do. And after about 4 or 5 of Charon's boats had been destroyed, Lord Hades, the god of war, Ares, has arrived at the Acheron River. Athena met my gaze and flashed me a wise smile from between the stacks of scrolls. Moments later, a handsome, muscular male god with a cheerful smile entered the office. It was Ares, the god of war, the son of Zeus and Hera. Uncle Hades, where is the war I should be fighting? Good. As the god of war, you'll be good at leading, right? From now on, your job is to guide the souls crossing the Styx River and send them here. What do you mean? Athena over there told me. Listening to Ares' bewildered words, I couldn't help but find it amusing. Athena had sent a message to him, saying, if you come to the underworld now, you can join a massive war, and that's why he rushed over. She even vouched for the truth of her words in my name. So, even if he had doubts, he believed her and came here. But in this situation, where every god is needed, I had no reason to show him mercy. Athena, you've tricked me again. I only said you could participate in the war against paperwork in the underworld. So what's the problem? Ares, who was crying out in anguish, suddenly vanished as he was seized by a lower god who appeared behind him. He didn't resist, mainly because I was watching with my eyes wide open. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Finally, after a long 9 days, the great flood came to an end. The gods of the underworld could finally rest a little, and just as they were about to drink nectar, another message came from Olympus. Deucalion, the son of Prometheus, has survived the flood and intends to revive humanity. Lord Hades, please reincarnate the souls. So, Prometheus, with his gift of prophecy, had warned his son about the flood. That's how he could build an ark and save his life. But now, do they want me to reincarnate the souls to recreate humanity? When I focused my eyes and ears on the earth for a moment, I could hear Deucalion and his wife Pyrrha talking. Darling, the oracle of Lord Zeus, says if we wish to revive humanity, we must throw the bones of the Great Mother over our shoulders. O gods, we cannot commit the sin of desecrating our ancestors. Please take back the oracle. Wait a moment. Could it be that Great Mother means the earth, and bones refer to stones? Oh, that could be it. When I saw them start picking up stones from the ground, I immediately shouted to the gods, quickly select the souls to be reincarnated and send them to the earth. Damn it, does this mean the work still isn't over? Hypnos, the goddess Lethe has collapsed, and you're putting her to sleep? I didn't put her to sleep. She just collapsed from exhaustion. Hurry up and sort out the souls. The underworld, which had just started to calm down, quickly descended into chaos again. Meanwhile, on Earth, Deucalion and his wife started throwing stones, creating human shapes. We threw the stones, and they formed into human shapes, but why aren't they moving? Let's wait a bit. It seems the gods are busy. Hurry up, souls. It's time to reincarnate. Did you properly sort out the souls of the guilty? Send them to the world of the living in order. The souls emerging from the underworld entered the human forms under the guidance of the gods. Only then did Deucalion and Pyrrha feel relieved and started throwing stones with all their might. Thud, 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 thud. The stones fell to the ground non-stop, successfully turning into humans. But the gods of the underworld were instead filled with frustration. Damn it, couldn't they throw them a little slower? What are they in such a hurry for, scattering stones like that? The underworld remains busy today. Tartarus, the deepest layer of the underworld, the abyssal realm. It's the most hidden and profound place beneath the earth, where even the goddess of the night, Nyx, resides. It's also where the Titans, defeated by us Olympian gods, are imprisoned. And now, I'm about to head there. If you're asking why I would willingly go to a prison shrouded in fog that even the gods avoid, for one, Tartarus is close to the underworld, my domain, and it's a place where extremely dangerous criminals are confined. Although the 3 Cinemanes brothers guard it as gatekeepers, I also have a duty to inspect it periodically. If the Titans were to escape from that hell, the primary responsibility would fall on the 3 brothers, but the secondary responsibility would be mine for not responding quickly. With the stick sword at my waist and light leather sandals on my feet, I left my bedroom. In the fortress of the underworld, the administrators and minor gods were bustling around, always diligently working for the souls. Let's delay the assignment of the newly arrived souls for now. There's still. Lord Moros has temporarily handed over his duties. Oh, Lord Hades! I'm glad to see more souls choosing to stay here instead of reincarnating. I'll go ahead and wait. Let's have a meal together in the living world sometime. If you can avoid the blessing of Lady Lethe, that is, haha. One hand held a scroll, while the other directed souls. These were the administrators. Senior soul soldiers were explaining the shift regulations to the new recruits. Children's souls, transparent, playing pranks as they passed through walls. The spirit of an old human conversing with a neighbor as they waited for reincarnation. This is the typical scene of the underworld, the realm I govern. As I walked, slowly observing my subjects, more souls began to gather around me. The administrators and minor gods tried to follow me, offering to assist, but I waved them away, intending to go alone, until I saw a familiar face. Hades, where are you going? With tired, unfocused eyes and a weak voice, this goddess with long silver hair cascading down to her waist and a form-fitting outfit was Lethe, the goddess of forgetfulness. Usually, she would be at the river of forgetfulness, blankly staring at the riverbank. What brought her here today? Especially since the Great Flood has long ended, and there isn't much work to be done. Are you thinking about why I came here? Her voice, which could lull anyone to sleep, lingered in my ears. Soft and drawn out, her very tone seemed to encroach on the domain of Hypnos, the god of sleep. She walked up to me, her sleepy eyes looking up at me as if wondering why I hadn't started moving yet. Jan, it looks like you're headed to Tartarus. I'll come with you, no matter how I look at it. She seems more like a goddess of sleep than of forgetfulness. Since the thought of walking to Tartarus alone felt a bit lonely, I nodded in agreement. Tartarus is the lowest part of the underworld, the most feared by mortals. The path leading there is guarded by numerous soul soldiers I've stationed. Greetings, Lord Hades. Glory to the Lord of the underworld. The souls in translucent armor, holding spears, bowed to me and to the goddess Lethe. I gave some words of encouragement to the guards who were faithfully protecting the path to Tartarus. May glory also be with the goddess Lethe. And good work. We passed by the braziers that Hestia herself had come down to the underworld to make, and headed into the increasingly dark depths. The path descending downward grew narrower, and a chilly air began to envelop us. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After traversing a suffocatingly narrow space for a long time, we finally came upon a wide path that led to an open area where a bronze fortress shrouded in mist appeared before us. As we approached, we were greeted by the massive bronze doors and thick bronze walls that seemed to stretch on endlessly, crafted by Poseidon himself. The three Centimanes brothers who guard this place, there they are, gigantic beings, each with 50 heads and 100 hands, gazed in our direction. The 300 eyes of the three brothers collectively focused on us, giving me an indescribable feeling. Hey, Hades, it's been a long time. Hades is here. You must be busy with underworld matters. Have you finally married Lethe, who is by your side? The many heads attached to the giant bodies greeted me and the goddess Lethe. It had been a while since I'd seen them, so I returned their greeting with warmth. But marriage? Lethe and I aren't in that kind of relationship. Judging by how you're holding hands, it seems you are. Wasn't Styx supposed to be Hades' partner? Ha! You two look so sweet together. Holding hands? What are they talking about? I should have come down here, keeping some distance from Lethe. But after hearing what they said, I noticed warmth in my left hand. The soft, small hand of a goddess. As I turned to the side, the goddess Lethe quietly let go of my hand, her face still bearing the same absent-minded expression as always. Or perhaps there was a faint blush on her cheeks. Could you please suppress your powers of forgetfulness a bit? TSK, can I hold your hand? Lethe, the goddess who controls the power of forgetfulness, causes nearby living beings to gradually lose their memories even without doing anything. Of course, there are clear limits. The more someone is aware of her and the stronger they are, the less her power affects them. Still, it's within her ability to play small pranks that make me momentarily forget something if I let my guard down. If I put some distance between us, everything would come back to me. But to think she had crept up and held my hand while making me forget about it. She truly is the granddaughter of Nyx, one of the primordial deities. I'll have to stay alert from now on. Who knows what kind of trick she'll try next? As I circulated a bit of divine power, my mind cleared, and Lethe's influence was quickly swept away. You're too mean, keeping Styx by your side all the time. I've never done such a thing. She spoke in a dejected tone, but Lethe's face remained as blank as ever, so I shook my head. And besides, I've never kept only the goddess Styx by my side. The Styx sword is a different matter, though. Guffaw. So, it hasn't happened yet? Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon have both found their partners. Why are you still? Why not ask Hera, the goddess of marriage and family, to arrange a match for you? Zeus's wife is, of course, Hera, the queen of the gods. And Poseidon married Amphitrite, a sea goddess. Naturally, I was invited to their wedding, which was held underwater, where I got to see thousands of marine creatures speaking like humans. There was even a seahorse that had been crying because its father had recently passed on to my underworld. Later, I found him in the underworld and offered him a bit of comfort. Could this be the weight of being the Lord of the Dead? As the king of the underworld, it might be seen as my responsibility or a burden placed upon me. The increase in my subjects inevitably means more grief for the living in the mortal world. As war, famine, and great floods occur, the power of the underworld grows stronger. But I cannot simply be pleased by this. But enough about that. Tell me what's happening outside. Weren't they talking about creating new life? I wonder how Zeus, who saved us, is doing. I shared with them the significant events that had occurred in the outside world. Some might say I could just send a messenger to inform them regularly, but this is a sign of respect. Respect for the three brothers who played a great role in the war against the Titans. If the Lord of the Underworld himself comes down here to talk, they won't feel they're being treated poorly. What? To wipe out the human race? Whoa! A great flood? Huh? Poseidon must have had a hard time. Prometheus finally fell out of favor with Zeus. Huh? TSK. Indeed. His gift of prophecy was a big help during the war. The three brothers, Kodos, Briareos, and Gyges, showed great interest in the news I brought from the outside. As their combined 150 heads began shattering, the surrounding area quickly filled with noise. Then, suddenly, a loud sound came from the gate separating Tartarus from the underworld. Boom! Boom! It was the sound of a prisoner inside Tartarus pounding on the bronze door. The three brothers, Lethe, and I immediately stopped talking and became vigilant. Inside Tartarus, fierce, scorching winds blow relentlessly, terrifying even the gods. Moreover, the place is filled with a power that suppresses the divine strength of the Titans, making it difficult to exert any significant force. And while entering from the outside is easy, trying to exit is another matter entirely, as the winds grow increasingly violent the closer you get to the door. Therefore, there aren't many who can push through the intensifying storm to pound on the bronze door. Only the strongest among the Titans could do such a thing. For example, the voice I just heard, there's no doubt is my eldest son, Hades. Please get me out of here. Like my father, Kronos, the god of agriculture and time. Boom, boom. The sound of my father, Kronos, pounding on the thick bronze door echoed through the underworld. True to his title as the strongest of the Titans, he endured the scorching hot winds near the bronze door as he struck it, speaking once more. Hades, I hear Zeus has taken control of the world. His voice, filled with agony from the heat, sounded like the howl of a beast. In case of an emergency, the three Cenemenes brothers exchanged glances and began gathering their strength. I placed my hand on the stick sword at my waist and approached the bronze door. The Cenemenes brothers suggested I should just ignore him, but the other side had already heard my voice. I had to extinguish any hope of escape he might have, so he wouldn't keep bothering the three brothers. And what does that have to do with you? Of course it has something to do with me. Are you really satisfied being the ruler of this dark underworld? I wonder what he was trying to say. It seems he's trying to sow discord using the information I just shared with the three brothers about the outside world. If you release me, I'll overthrow that cursed Zeus and give you everything under the heavens. I have no interest in power. And you, who tried to kill your own children and started a war, think you can sway me with promises of power? I'll give you any goddess, except for Rhea. Just imagine it. All those beautiful. Abandon your false hopes and remain imprisoned forever. The fact that he was still standing firm against the scorching winds beyond the door was impressive. Why? Don't you find my offer appealing? Those hideous creatures may be guarding the door, but for someone like you, opening it for a moment should be possible. The hideous creatures he referred to were the Cenemane's brothers, who had been thrown into Tartarus by their grandfather Uranus and left there by Kronos. Hearing Kronos' words, the brothers scowled even more, their expressions growing even fiercer. With such a rude personality, it's no wonder he was defeated by us, despite once ruling the world. No matter what terms you offer, I have no intention of releasing you, so, as I continued to refuse, Kronos shouted in desperation. Gur! Hades! Does your father not deserve any pity? You are the child of Rhea and me. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Hades, the lord of the underworld, is one of the most virtuous gods among the deities. It's hard to believe that the god of the underworld, whom everyone fears, could be virtuous, but at least to Lethe he seemed that way. Despite his high status as one of the three chief gods, he had the character to respect lower-ranking gods like her. Even though he was also Pluto, the god of wealth, he didn't adorn himself with common trinkets like bracelets, showing a modest side. He always showed the aspect of a wise ruler, concerned about the lives of the souls who became his subjects. A merciful god who thought more about the mortal beings who lived short lives rather than the power of the underworld. He was so different from Zeus and Poseidon, his fellow chief gods, especially when it came to goddesses he fancied. Unlike those two, who would take them by force, Hades was not a brute like his brothers. Sometimes she could feel his gaze on her when she wore clothes that revealed her figure, so it wasn't as if he had no interest in women. But despite having sufficient power and authority, why did he refrain from pursuing goddesses? Perhaps it was this very quality that made her fall for him. Hades might not realize it, but there were many women who aimed to become the queen of the underworld. Many goddesses on Olympus, the goddess Styx, nymphs who dwelt in certain objects or natural places. And lastly, Lethe herself, the goddess of forgetfulness. That's why she had just subtly focused her powers of forgetfulness to satisfy her own feelings. He had eventually caught her holding his hand, but she liked that he didn't scold her harshly and let it slide. It was clear to Lethe that this usually gentle god was now genuinely enraged. Did you just call yourself my father? As Hades glared at the bronze door with a twisted, savage smile, the entire underworld trembled. His figure transformed into a shadowy form, enveloped in a pitch-black, icy divine aura. With just a single word, the intensity of his emotions was palpable. This anger was on an entirely different level than when he had warned Olympus through Iris about the Great Flood. As his overwhelming divine power surged, Lethe involuntarily stepped back. Even the Cenemane's brothers, who had fought valiantly in the Titanomachy, couldn't dismiss Hades lightly and watched him with stern expressions. Unaware of his son's wrath, Kronos continued speaking from beyond the bronze door. Even though our relationship has been rough, we are still father and son, are we not? Do you not remember when you were born and held in Rhea's arms? If I could, I would drain every drop of your blood from my veins. Although intense emotions were erupting, causing the ground beneath Hades to crack, his voice remained astonishingly calm. You insolent wretch! The offspring born from my father's blood will judge you. The Erinyes and I get along quite well. They even visited my fortress recently. What? The monsters born from Kronos' father's blood were none other than the three goddesses of vengeance, the Erinyes. Born from the blood of Uranus's severed genitals, they were shunned and feared by all. Lethe, the goddess of forgetfulness, was well aware of them since they resided in the underworld. Tisiphone, Alecto-Magira. These three goddesses, with their bronze wings, bleeding eyes, and snake-like hair, are the goddesses of vengeance. They punish all kinds of sins, but especially avenge acts of kinslaying, with a particular focus on punishing heinous crimes against one's own family. Although these terrifying goddesses of vengeance were shunned by all, the king of the underworld approached them without hesitation and now had developed a relationship with them, to the point of occasionally exchanging friendship. You were the one who tried to kill us first, weren't you? The Erinyes are not as foolish as you think. Hades, as the lord of the underworld, I say this. Hades's icy voice cut off the god of time and agriculture. At this very moment, his words were both a proclamation and a decree. The declaration, made with the full force of the god of the underworld's divine authority, began to weigh heavily on Kronos. It wasn't to the point of interfering with fate, but at least here in the underworld, it was a prophecy imbued with undeniable power. You will never escape from there. Guryu, do you think it'll be any different? In the end, when someone threatens your authority, the voice beyond the bronze door gradually faded. No matter how powerful Kronos was, it seemed he could no longer withstand the raging hot winds. As his voice slowly disappeared, Hades also calmed his emotions. The ominously terrifying black form dissipated, and he returned to his usual gloomy yet composed appearance. With a bitter smile, he spoke to the Cinemanes. Sigh. The underworld must have been shaken, frightening many souls. I'm sorry, but I should return now. See you next time, then. Today wasn't a good day to unwind. Don't worry and go back. We'll keep this place safe. Indeed, he was a virtuous god. Asterisk. What madness. Did he really think I would be swayed by appealing to our blood ties, claiming to be my father? What? Give me the world under the heavens, and hand over goddesses if I free him? The underworld trembled considerably because of that crazed criminal's nonsensical babble. Not being able to control my emotions properly. How unbecoming of a ruler. Hades, the goddess Lethe, who had been quietly walking alongside me on the way back to the underworld, spoke up. She had her usual dazed expression, but for some reason, it felt like she was pitying me. I can make the memory a bit hazy if you'd like. It's fine. I knew she meant it kindly, considering how enraged I had been earlier, but it wasn't necessary. I was just a bit displeased. For now, I needed to focus on the citizens of the underworld who were frightened by the recent earthquake rather than my own feelings. When I return, the goddess Styx will probably scold me again. As I ascended further, I noticed the soldiers on duty here were gripping their weapons tightly, looking extremely tense. They probably thought there was an invasion, given the disturbance I caused earlier. Lord Hades, there was a tremor deep within the underworld. Did something happen with the prisoners in Tartarus? I brushed past them, telling them not to worry, that nothing was amiss. I should hurry back to the fortress and get to work. Lord Hades. Morpheus? What's the matter? The god with striking green hair, Morpheus, the god of dreams. A son of Erebus, the god of darkness, and Nyx, the goddess of night. He was one of the deities of the underworld. Like his brother, Hypnos, the god of sleep, he always had a calm and gentle demeanor. But for some reason, he now wore a very urgent expression. It was nighttime, so he should be out of the underworld, delivering dreams to the living. Huff! I found the god Hermes, covered in blood, collapsed at the entrance to the underworld. Morpheus said that when he ascended to the earth to distribute dreams to the living, he saw a stork lying on the ground. When he noticed that the stork, covered in blood, looked strange, the stork transformed into the god Hermes. Morpheus, I must see Lord Hades right away. What? Lord Hermes? Morpheus then hurriedly brought him to the underworld, where he is currently being treated. Something urgent must have happened on Olympus. Hermes is the messenger of the gods and the envoy who conveys the commands of Zeus. He is the son of Atlas's daughter Maia and Zeus, and one of the 12 Olympian gods. As is typical of messengers, Hermes is incredibly fast. To compare, when traveling long distances like from the underworld to Olympus, Iris, who travels via the rainbow, is faster. However, few gods can match Hermes' speed when he is fleeing at full strength. And yet, this god, who boasts such speed, was found at the entrance of the underworld, collapsed and covered in blood. Moreover, among the 12 Olympian gods, Hermes' divinity is so high that few would dare challenge him. I steadied my confused mind as I entered the room where Hermes lay. "Lord Hades, what a state you're in, Hermes." The young god, who always brought vitality to Olympus with his lively smile and witty actions, was now in a pitiful condition. The face that once resembled a mischievous rogue was now covered in blood, with not a single unscathed limb. Despite the attendant's efforts to change his bandages and the lower gods infusing him with divine energy to restore his strength, blood continued to flow. Hermes, with one eye not covered by bandages, glanced at me, tears welling in his eye. "A monster? There was a monster. Speak clearly. Does Zeus know about this?" For an ordinary human, or even for a nymph or a lower god residing in nature, such grievous wounds would render them unable to speak a word. Only because he was one of the 12 gods permitted to sit on Olympus's golden throne could he speak at all. At a regular banquet on Olympus, a monster that called itself Typhon struck down Lord Zeus in a single blow. From his halting words, I pieced together the story. During a typical banquet of the Olympian gods, a gigantic hand suddenly struck the banquet hall. In this unexpected blow, Zeus was gravely injured, and though he threw his thunderbolt, the monster merely flinched. The monster, who introduced himself as Typhon, had the upper body of a man and the lower body of a snake, resembling a gigantes. From his eyes, an intense heat comparable to Hephaestus's flames flowed, and his entire body was enveloped in a terrifying storm. The other gods were either swiftly defeated or fled, and Zeus remained alone, wielding his scythe in resistance. But eventually— "You mean he had to use the scythe?" "Yes. Lord Poseidon's trident and my father's astrape couldn't even leave a scratch. The scythe, the adamantine sickle that my father Kronos used to castrate Uranus. That weapon, personally crafted by Gaia, the Mother Earth, was needed to cut through that monster's skin. But Typhon, the name certainly feels familiar. I definitely know this name. It's buried somewhere in my faint memories of my past life. Father, Lord Zeus, while trapped in that creature's grasp, ordered me to go to the underworld and seek help." "Keep talking." The monster laughed as it crushed my leg. "Please, help Olympus, uncle." Hermes, the fastest god in Olympus, tried to escape quickly but got caught up in the storm surrounding Olympus. While Typhon allowed the other gods to flee, he sneered at Hermes and struck his leg. With a single blow, the messenger god's leg was brutally twisted. Then, in an effort to escape from Typhon's sight, he transformed into a small stork and fled. With those words, Hermes lost consciousness. It was natural. He had been forcibly holding on to consciousness just to relay the situation of Olympus to me. "Hades, are you going to help Olympus?" The goddess Styx looked at me with a deeply worried expression. This time, it's different from when the gigantes invaded the underworld. This time, the battle is on Olympus. In the sea, Poseidon is invincible, just as I am in the underworld. So, what about Zeus in the sky? A monster that defeated Olympus alone. This is truly dangerous. The answer lies in the absolute God who rules the world. In the sky, even if all 12 Olympian gods gathered, none could match Zeus. But the king of gods and the chief deity of Olympus, Zeus, fought in his own domain, the sky, wielding his most powerful weapon, the scythe, and was still defeated. To hear this and not grasp the monster Typhon's strength would be sheer stupidity. If I can just rescue Zeus, we'll stand a chance. But even if things get dangerous, I can pull myself out, so don't worry too much. Since Zeus is an immortal god, that monster likely subdued him and imprisoned him somewhere. Thus, my mission is clear. rescue Zeus, and fight the monster called Typhon. Though the powerful Astrape only caused Typhon some pain without leaving a scratch, I can at least distract him until Zeus uses the scythe to strike his neck. But wouldn't it be better to bring the underworld's army with you? It would be a pointless sacrifice. If Hermes was caught up in the storm surrounding Typhon, then sheer numbers won't work. Even if I bring the army of the underworld, Typhon wouldn't pay any attention. I forcibly turned my head away from the teary-eyed goddess Styx and left the room. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I returned to the fortress of the underworld. More precisely, I returned to the audience chamber where my throne is and took my seat. Why do such troublesome things keep happening? There is always a pile of work waiting for me. And whenever the underworld feels a little peaceful, problems arise elsewhere. With a sigh, I reached out to the side of my throne. My fingers touched a seemingly ordinary, worn-out helmet. Kaini. No creature has ever been able to perceive me while I was wearing the Kaini, but I wonder if it will work on that monster as well. I have no choice but to trust in this helmet, which was personally crafted by Arjesh, one of the 3 Cyclopes. Gripping the Kaini tightly, I armed myself with my weapons and armor. I fastened the Styx sword to my waist, and my entire body was covered in black armor forged from the waters of the underworld. As I completed my preparations, Thanatos entered the audience chamber, his black wings fluttering. He spoke in a grave tone. Hades, I've heard that Olympus is in danger. Thanatos, the monster Typhon is immortal. My powers don't work on him, just like with our fellow gods. Could it be that Thanatos has seen Typhon? He sends his avatars to roam the earth day and night, so it's likely he witnessed Typhon. I only watched that enormous creature from a distance. When I used my powers to try to extract his soul, he turned his head toward me. Fortunately, he was focused on something else, so he didn't pursue me. If Typhon has immortality like us, it's likely he is related to the gods by blood. He could be of Titan lineage, or considering his resemblance to a Gigantes, perhaps Gaia sent him. Is this her attempt to finish us off after we repelled the Gigantes' first offensive? TCH. You're dead set on going. Be careful. I brushed past Thanatos and left the fortress. For the first time in a long while, I crossed the river of the underworld fully armed and set foot on the earth. Thud. Instead of the dreary air of the underworld, the clear, clean atmosphere of the surface greeted me. Though I appreciated the feel of the land blessed by Demeter, I wasn't here to enjoy the scenery. It was night in the world above. With the transcendent vision of my divine nature, I could see the moon goddess, Selene, riding her silver chariot across the sky. A black horse and a white horse pulled the moon as they hurried along. But usually they don't fly that high. It was as if they were avoiding something on the earth, and the horses did seem to be trembling. Could this also be Typhon's doing? I donned the Kaini and headed towards Mount Olympus. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The towering Mount Olympus was half destroyed. The divine palace in the clouds atop the mountain had turned into a ruin filled with debris, as if some giant had trampled over it. I couldn't sense any of the gods, but I saw a monster resembling a Gigantes. A fierce storm was emanating from the body of the enormous creature, which was large enough to cover Mount Olympus. Hush! The monster, whose shoulders touched the sky and whose head brushed the stars, raged in fury. Whenever it grew angry, the snakes attached to its hair spewed lightning and venom. Boom! Rumble! When it struck Mount Olympus with its fist, an entire peak crumbled to the ground. Gra! Moirai! How dare you deceive me? The Moirai, the 3 goddesses of fate? What could they have done? Lord Typhon, what did they do to you? A creature with the lower body of a serpent and the upper body of a human spoke to Typhon. It must be one of Typhon's monstrous minions. Those old Moirai on that tiny mountain tricked me by giving me a fruit they claimed would grant me great power. But it's weakening me. They did that. So the fates on Mount Nyssa have helped us. But if this is him weakened, it's clear that a head-on battle won't give us any chance of winning. I need to find Zeus first. Ugh, but it doesn't matter. The only one who is a threat to me is already trapped in a cave, Zeus. Seeing how it's rambling on, assuming there's no one else around, It's clear this monster hasn't been alive for long. No experienced god or titan would ever do such a thing. It strengthens my suspicion that this monster was recently created by my grandmother Gaia, who also made the Gigantes. Does it not know about my Kaini? Or does it simply think I won't help Olympus? Just as I was about to start searching for the cave where Zeus was imprisoned, I saw a strange creature. It was an animal with the upper body of a goat and the lower body of a fish, trembling in fear and hiding in the bushes. I sighed as I passed by the creature, convinced it was one of the gods who had transformed to escape. The traces left behind by Typhon, whose enormous body was large enough to cover a mountain, as he dragged Zeus away, were clear. If Demeter were to see this, she would lose her mind, and then the land was completely overturned. The scene was a massacre, with all the surrounding plants, animals, and humans perishing due to the storm that naturally emanated from Typhon's body. And there were remnants of divine power left behind by Zeus as he resisted while being dragged away. After traveling some distance, I discovered that the traces abruptly ended at a certain mountain. I suspected there must be a cave on this mountain where Zeus was imprisoned, and as I began to search the area, and so my tendons are currently in Typhon's grasp. If you can assist me, in the name of Zeus, king of the gods, a voice emanated from a translucent image of a bull, speaking to the human who was prostrated on the ground. Noticing that the bull was formed from Zeus's divine power, I removed my hood and approached. Zeus? Oh, it's you, brother Hades? So Hermes was successful, but I lacked the strength to maintain this any longer. Zeus's state seemed dire. As his divine power weakened, the bull image vanished. I looked down at the prostrated human beside me. I am the lowly human Cadmus, paying respects to Hades, lord of the underworld. Oh! Most humans fear and avoid my name, but this man was different. Usually, people call me Hades when they have lost someone dear or when their lives are on the line. Otherwise, they call me Pluto. As I looked at Cadmus, who kept his head bowed and avoided meeting my eyes, he began to explain. He said he was Cadmus, a prince of Phoenicia, and said that Zeus, after being defeated in battle against Typhon, was imprisoned in a cave on this mountain. He said that Zeus, having had his tendons taken, sent the bull to him, asking for help. Essentially, he was saying that he was under Zeus's command to retrieve the tendons from Typhon. Though his speech was disjointed and difficult to follow, it was clear that Zeus must have lost his mind. To ask a mere human, who could be killed by a single breath from Typhon, to retrieve his tendons, was the situation really that desperate, or did Zeus see something in this human? Are you truly planning to follow Zeus's command? It could shorten your already brief life. If he had said he couldn't do it, that he was too afraid, or that he was scared, I was prepared to offer him protection from Zeus's wrath. But the blond man, Cadmus, did not do that. Cadmus, the prince of Phoenicia, was an ordinary human. An ordinary human who feared monsters and the unknown, and revered the gods of Olympus. To such an ordinary human, one day his father, King Agenor, ordered Cadmus to find his sister Europa. The king commanded his princes to search for the princess Europa, telling them not to return if they couldn't find her. Naturally, Cadmus couldn't find any trace of Europa, and with a heavy heart, he wandered until he reached the vicinity of Mount Cilicia. But just as he was about to search the mountain for his sister, something suddenly appeared before him. Human, I am Zeus, king of the gods. Startled, Cadmus quickly lowered his head to the translucent image of a bull that appeared before him. With a dignified tone and an aura of mystery, it was unmistakably a god, even if Cadmus wasn't certain it was Zeus himself. The god commanded Cadmus to help him. He was asked to retrieve the tendons from a powerful monster that even a god had failed to defeat. The command of a god is absolute, and Cadmus had to obey. Cold sweat trickled down the back of his neck. Could he really do it? He hardly registered the promised reward spoken by the bull, presumably sent by Zeus. Cadmus's mind was filled with fear and terror at the thought of facing a monster. That is, until a grim-looking man suddenly appeared. Zeus? Oh, it's you, brother Hades? In that moment, Cadmus's mind was overwhelmed by a fear greater than that of the monster. Though the sun was shining in the sky, the surroundings grew dark and the air became heavy. Finding it hard to breathe, Cadmus saw the grass around the man begin to wither. A cold energy emanated from the man, dominating the area with a tremendous presence and weight. If this was not a god, then what could be considered a god? They definitely called each other Hades and Zeus. So that means, could this man really be the lord of the underworld, Pluto? And that bull, could it really have been sent by Zeus? He sneaked a glance at Hades, who was looking at Zeus's bull, but seeing the gloomy god's eyes, Cadmus was struck with terror and had to bury his head in the ground again. For in Hades' eyes, there was a black abyss that no human eyes could possess. Not some minor river god, but a high-ranking deity of Olympus. It must be Hades, the god of the underworld. As Cadmus kept his head bowed, he sensed that the bull sent by Zeus had vanished and that the lord of the underworld was now gazing at him. As if asking him to explain the situation, Hades' gaze prompted Cadmus's mouth to start moving on its own. I am the lowly human Cadmus, paying respects to Hades, lord of the underworld. Should I have called him Pluto? Cadmus swallowed nervously as he felt the gaze of the lord of the underworld upon him, and began to explain. He recounted everything about himself, and all that the bull sent by Zeus had just said. Damn it, I stuttered too much. What if he takes offense and drags me to the underworld? There was a moment of silence as Hades pondered. The continued silence made Cadmus feel as if his blood were draining from him, the tension unbearable. Finally, the god of the dead spoke. Are you really planning to follow Zeus's command? It could shorten your already brief life. Cadmus, still bowing his head, inhaled sharply. This was surely a considerate remark, a warning. The great god was concerned that he, a mere mortal, might lose his life to the monster. From the perspective of the underworld, human death would only increase his dominion. Hades, the god whom even in his own kingdom everyone avoided and feared so much that no one dared build a temple for him. Could it be that Hades, or rather Pluto, was such a merciful god? Despite the god's kind words, Cadmus wrestled with how to respond to them. How was he supposed to take the command of Zeus? As Hades had just said, weak humans die easily at the hands of monsters. So why did Zeus choose him to help? Moreover, the monster Typhon was so terrifying that even the great king of the gods, Zeus, had been defeated by him. No matter how great Zeus might be, wasn't Cadmus's life more important? Could this be a test from the gods to see if a weak human like him would rise to the challenge? If he died facing Typhon, he would never find his sister Europa, nor return to his brothers. With his head still bowed, Cadmus agonized over his thoughts until he finally came to a decision and spoke with a clear voice. Yes, of course. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The fear that had been evident on his face, due to my presence, seemed to fade. Was he using a firm belief as a pillar to support himself and withstand the pressure? Though I had been suppressing my presence since the moment I appeared to spare him, even that would be difficult for an ordinary human to bear. He exhibited a mix of fear, confidence, and determination. Why was he willing to walk down a path that could lead to his death, simply because of Zeus's command? Why? Filled with many questions, I asked him. Humans are not slaves or servants of the gods. If he felt that Zeus's command was oppressive, I would protect him. Cadmus, after clearing his throat, explained his reasoning. Oh well, ever since I was a child, I was taught about the grace of the gods. That the gods were the creators of all living beings, including humans. It was true that the gods created humans, but it was more out of necessity than anything else. Could his actions really be just repayment to his creators? This morning's rising sun was the mercy of the god Helios, and the moonlight that comforted me every night was the blessing of the goddess Selene. Cadmus's eyes were filled with unwavering conviction. His voice no longer trembled. The food I eat every day is the grain blessed by Demeter, and the water I drink is imbued with the favor of Poseidon. And in addition, he continued to speak of the gods' blessings. These were not hastily made-up lies, but thoughts that truly came from his heart. Lastly, even if I were to die by Typhon's hand, I would be under the care of the god Hades, who stands before me now. Why should I fear a mere monster and flee? Impressive. Did such a person really exist in this world? Cadmus slightly raised his head to look at me. Blood trickled from his lips, as if it pained him to meet my gaze, yet he did not avert his eyes. His eyes were filled with willpower, overcoming the fear of the monster. In them, a courage greater than that of Ares blazed. Indeed, compared to the great gods, I am but a mere human. He bowed his head again to me, not out of submission to divine presence, but with gratitude and reverence. But I am not ungrateful for the blessings I have been given. In this moment, Cadmus was undoubtedly a hero. I witnessed an utterly ordinary human gaining the courage of Ares. I've seen countless humans before, but never have I been so deeply impressed as I was today. But mere determination is not enough to fulfill the command given by Zeus. Does this Cadmus truly possess such abilities? So I asked him directly, what method would he use to retrieve Zeus's tendons from Typhon? Though I may not be comparable to Apollo, the god of music, I am confident that I possess enough skill to mesmerize a monster. Cadmus rummaged through his belongings and pulled out a flute, bringing it to his lips and blowing gently. His posture while playing the flute was skilled and natural, indicating that this was not his first time. Pyri-ri-ri-ri-ri. At the sweet sound of Cadmus's flute, the animals around him paused. Even the nymphs dwelling in nature emerged to listen to the music, and the air itself trembled softly, resonating with the melody. The entire space where the sound of the flute reached flowed in harmony with his tune. When the soft rhythm that echoed all around ceased, I couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. Removing the flute from his lips, Cadmus confidently spoke to me. The monster will not be able to resist my flute's melody. I briefly compared the music I had heard from Apollo, the god of music and Zeus's son, with this. Similar to Apollo? No, perhaps even better than Apollo? A skill in playing music that might dare to challenge the very seat of the god of music. And yet it is still dangerous. It's not just about the performance. He would also need eloquence, courage, and luck to retrieve the tendons from Typhon. If the monster were even slightly experienced, this gambit would never work. However, imagining the somewhat clumsy Typhon in my mind, there was a glimmer of possibility. Lord Hades, I am already prepared. In truth, I still think Zeus has gone mad. But the eloquence and courage Cadmus displayed earlier in response to my questions were certainly beyond the realm of ordinary men. After finishing my thoughts, I slowly nodded. Still, if Typhon pays no mind to the sound of the flute and attempts to kill Cadmus, or if something seems off, I'll intervene with the kine and the sword of Styx. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Periri, periri. In a place a little distance from Mount Olympus, a man disguised as a shepherd, Cadmus, walked along while playing his flute. A few steps behind him, I followed, sort of Styx drawn and wearing the kine. Though he was approaching a monster capable of killing him instantly, he continued to play his music calmly. As he entered Typhon's domain and fierce winds began to howl, he stumbled, losing his footing. Cool. But soon, the tempest that had been raging fiercely started to subside. It was a sign that Typhon, intrigued by the music, was withdrawing the winds that shrouded him. Seeing clear evidence that his music was affecting Typhon, Cadmus regained his confidence and pressed forward. Gradually, the animals dwelling in the mountains disappeared, and the number of fallen trees increased. The closer he got to Typhon, the greater the sense of pressure grew. Yet Cadmus pressed on, sweating but resolute. And finally, he encountered the monster. Ha ha ha! Truly an extraordinary performance. What is your name? Human? The earth and sky trembled at Typhon's laughter as he lay reclining on his side. Yet despite this, Cadmus stood firm on his two legs. I am merely a passing shepherd named Cadmus. Great one. A shepherd? Merely a shepherd. You produce heavenly music, yet you claim to do such a trivial job. Typhon looked down at Cadmus with an eye full of goodwill, as if watching an ant perform tricks. Even Typhon's hair, made up of 100 snakes spewing lightning and venom, remained silent in front of Cadmus. "Come with me. If you play that music for me, whenever I wish, I shall grant you a great reward." "What kind of reward do you speak of?" Feigning contemplation, Typhon, as if bestowing charity upon the ant before him, spoke. "At least, that's how it appeared to me, Hades. If you desire, I will give you any goddess, except Athena, Aphrodite, Leto, or Artemis. What do you think? That crazy monster, so Hera must be his prize." For a moment, I worried that Cadmus might succumb to the temptation. For a human man, the promise of possessing a goddess is an irresistible temptation. Moreover, if it meant not having to risk deceiving the monster. "Of course, I will follow your command, Great One, but wouldn't you like to hear an even more exquisite melody? Oh, even better than the flute just now." Cadmus's throat bobbed noticeably, and then he boldly began to argue with Typhon. "In the past, I once defeated the god Apollo in a lyre contest. But when Zeus found out, he struck my lyre with lightning and broke it. You are someone who could defeat Apollo, yet he cut your lyre strings with lightning. If I could remake my lyre, I could play you a melody even sweeter than what you just heard." Indeed, his eloquence, courage, and wisdom all fit the image of the first human hero. "Very well. This is the tendons of Zeus, who lost to me. Use this to remake your lyre and return to me. I am merely grateful, Great One." Typhon moved his massive body and retrieved the tendons from beneath the bare skin he was lying on. They pulsated with a strong rhythm, even though they were separated from their owner's body, and there wasn't a single rotten or damaged part. "I will go and make the lyre and return." "Ah, yes, return quickly." With the courage of Ares, the musical talent of Apollo, and the wisdom of Athena, the hero completed his task. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. "You've truly retrieved my tendons, mortal. It is an honor to assist you, Lord Zeus." Cadmus and I returned to the mountain with the sinews and found the cave where Zeus was trapped. For a moment, I was startled by the sight of the mighty Zeus, stripped of all his power, lying flat on the ground. But as soon as the tendons were recovered and reattached to his legs, he returned to being the Zeus I knew. Zeus, it seems the fates intervened with Typhon. The more I helped me? When I informed him about the weakened state of Typhon, he clenched his fist with a confident smile. It seemed his confidence had returned. "I know where Typhon hid my estrape. Could you, brother Hades, perhaps gather the other gods while I retrieve it?" Of course. Even though Zeus had regained his strength, Typhon, who had single-handedly brought Olympus to its knees, was not an entity to be underestimated. Zeus might be planning to join forces this time, knowing that he could be defeated again if he fought alone. I immediately set out to find the other gods. First, I removed my helm of darkness to make myself recognizable and began searching the area. Fortunately, one of the gods found me first. Hades. It was Hestia, the goddess of the hearth. Terrified, she ran to me and embraced me. The warm and gentle divine power I usually felt from her was trembling with instability, like a hearth's fire flickering, nearly extinguished by a fierce wind. "You've come to help." But Zeus couldn't escape in time. "I've already met with Zeus, so calm down." For a seasoned god who had endured wars with the Titans and Gigantes to tremble with such fear, it reminded me just how powerful a monster Typhon truly was. After explaining to her about Zeus's tendons, I went to search for the other gods. Hestia was also shocked to hear of the remarkable human hero who aided us, whom she had only seen as a figure to be nurtured. "My goodness, a human hero helped us? I'll introduce you to him after we defeat Typhon." She also decided to gather the other gods and converge at Mount Olympus, now under Typhon's control. The pace at which the gods are gathering will surely pick up pace from now on. As I was thinking this, a god with the lower half of a goat and the upper body of a man came running toward me. He wore the same expression that humans usually have when they look at Zeus. "Hades, my lord!" He stopped before me. "Gah, you've come to save Olympus, even descending to the mortal realm. I am truly ashamed." So it was you, Pan, who had transformed into that creature I saw before meeting Cadmus, a being that was half goat, half-fish? I thought you were just another minor god and passed by while tracking Zeus's traces. If I'd known it was you, I might have removed my helm of darkness and spoken to you sooner. Pan, the god of nature and shepherds, a satyr who is half man and half goat. Incidentally, he is the son of Hermes and the grandson of Zeus. You really need to work on your transformation skills. Thank goodness Typhon was only focused on chasing down the fleeing gods and spared Hermes. Is my father safe? Gore, it was such a chaotic situation. I informed him that Hermes was currently recovering in the underworld, and he gritted his teeth. The powerlessness and bitterness of being a god, yet fleeing from a monster, seemed to weigh heavily on him. Like with Hestia, I calmed him down and told him to help find the other gods. Yes, my lord, I am the god of nature. After all, if I ask around, I can find the others quickly. I didn't need to ask whom he would ask. I confirmed that birds, squirrels, and other animals had gathered around him. Given Pan and the number of gods who had turned into fish, perhaps I should head to the river. Luckily, there was a suitable river nearby. Revealing my presence, I expanded my divine power, and 2 fish in the river suddenly leapt out. Their forms shifted in an instant, and powerful divine energy leaks out. The 12 Olympian gods, Uncle Hades, and what has become of the god of war? I'm sorry. The sense of defeat was so overwhelming that One was Ares, a muscular male god who had greatly assisted the underworld during the Great Flood. And the other was a goddess with luxurious golden hair and a beauty so intense it was almost chilling. Her aura captivated everyone who laid eyes on her, regardless of age or gender. Her flawless body and the floral scent she exuded. It had been a while since I last saw Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love. Born from the sea foam that arose when Kronos castrated his father Uranus, she was the epitome of divine beauty. It's been a while, Hades. Of all times, she was wearing the Kestos Hemas, a girdle that amplifies her power to enchant men. The allure of the goddess of beauty, irresistible to all. Feeling a headache coming on, I averted my eyes and told Aphrodite, "Save that for when you're fighting Typhon." Heh. As expected, it doesn't work well on the 3 elder gods. The manifestation of perfect beauty muttered under her breath as she undid the girdle. If her son Eros, the god of love, and Pytho, the goddess of persuasion, were here as well, I might have been swayed a bit. Ah, Aphrodite, my nephew was already under her spell, grinning foolishly. Even though Aphrodite is already married to Hephaestus, there's no point in telling the goddess of love not to seduce men, so there's nothing to be done. Will she eventually gain a divine aspect related to infidelity? I explained the situation to them and asked for their help. I see. If father's tendons are restored, then we shall go seek out the other gods as well. I'll see you again soon, Hades. She really is like a female Zeus, trying to lure anyone who fits her taste into bed. As I turned to continue my search for the other gods, a breeze from the forest whispered in my ear. The rustling grass conveyed Pan's message to me. Zeus's eagle, his messenger, also flew towards me. Lord Hades, we found everyone. Brother, while we engage the enemy first, we ask you to safeguard the scepter. Perhaps Olympus's? The time for a counterattack had arrived. Mount Olympus, the divine palace above the towering clouds. Reclining and savoring his victory, Typhon found it strange that Cadmus had not yet returned. Hadn't he promised to reward him with a goddess in exchange for playing the lyre by his side? Could it be that he fled? There's no way a mere mortal would refuse the reward of embracing a goddess. It could be one of Zeus's schemes. As Typhon pondered for a moment, he considered summoning his subordinate, the monster Delphine, to find the insolent human, if not for the numerous divine powers approaching from afar. Are these weaklings coming to challenge me again? Even if the gods who had fled gathered, it would be pointless. Typhon, I have returned. Zeus, holding the astrape above the black clouds, but his tendons were surely severed. Damn that human. As Typhon hurriedly rose, black clouds gathered above his head, unleashing a torrent of fierce lightning. Flash boom! Arcs! The pain. It was unbearable. It felt like his entire body was burning. Wasn't Zeus's lightning supposed to only sting? How could it hurt this much? Typhon grit his teeth at the power of Zeus's lightning strikes. When he ambushed Olympus, it wasn't nearly this strong. Those cursed Moirai and the strange fruit they gave him. I won't be careless this time. Let's see who truly deserves the throne of the chief god. In Zeus's hand, now that he had reclaimed his stolen tendons, a destructive blue, lightning bolt crackled, displaying his power. With a thunderous roar, Zeus hurled the astrape once more. Arcs, Typhon didn't remain idle. He was the god of storms, and a mighty wind, capable of toppling even the tallest mountains, raged furiously, laying waste to everything in its path. Though Zeus's lightning was painful, it wasn't enough to kill the weakened Typhon outright. A massive hand, carried by the storm, shot out toward Zeus with deadly force. If he could just crush the king of the gods, once I subdue Zeus, the others are nothing. As Typhon thought this, a sweet voice echoed in his ear. Over here, just for a moment, won't you? A soft, weak voice from below, but an irresistibly alluring voice that briefly diverted Typhon's attention and made him look down. A beautifully adorned woman, Aphrodite, smiled brightly as she locked eyes with Typhon. Under the full force of the goddess of beauty's charm, the momentum of Typhon's reaching hand faltered. Zeus, you don't care if Mount Olympus gets a little damaged. Less talking, more moving, Poseidon, then I won't hold back. The blue-haired god raised his trident high and struck the earth with all his might. The power of the trident, a masterpiece crafted by the Cyclopes brothers, manifested as the ground shook violently, making the entire mountain tremble. O earth, tremble! Reveal your inner depths to me. With her voice cold and steady, Demeter placed her hand on the ground. The earthquake was intensified by Demeter, the goddess of the earth. The ground cracked and shifted unpredictably, making it difficult for Typhon to move and throwing him off balance. Next, Hestia's power warmly embraced the gods, while fierce flames burst forth from the hammer of Hephaestus, the god of fire and blacksmiths, consuming everything in their path. A storm raged so violently that trees were reduced to dust, and the ground erupted in the battle of the gods. Mount Olympus was gradually losing its form. Some distance from Mount Olympus, a great calamity struck the cities of mortals. Flash boom! Thunder roared continuously from the sky, and the earth shook violently with earthquakes. Buildings collapsed, and storms raged as people cried out to the gods. Ah, Zeus, what have we done wrong? This earthquake must be Poseidon's punishment. Did you fail to offer the proper tribute to the sea? Ah, please save us. Rumble. People desperately tried to flee the city, while some remained in the temples, praying to the gods. They didn't know which god, but they hoped that their prayers would be heard and the anger would be appeased. Boom! Once again, thunder and storms raged, causing buildings to collapse. This isn't right. The gods wouldn't punish us like this. A priest of Demeter, residing in the city, clearly sensed something was wrong. So far, the disasters that had occurred included thunder and lightning, heavy rains, earthquakes, and fierce winds. No single god should possess all these powers. Yet it would only take the power of one god to destroy this city. Could it be that the gods are fighting? The mortals soon realized this was merely the aftermath of their battle, like crumbs falling from a loaf of bread or sparks flying while mining metal. The true disaster was unfolding on Mount Olympus. Huh? War. It's war. A red divine aura erupted from Ares' entire body like a storm. His war horses, known as divine steeds, snorted fiercely as they ran through the air. The god of war laughed madly as he charged forward in his chariot. His target was the monster's face, and it didn't matter if his attacks couldn't wound it. Unlike the last time, when all he could smell was defeat, this time he could feel the melody of victory approaching. You vermin! Furious from being relentlessly beaten by the gods' combined attacks, Typhon wildly swung his arms. And once again, a terrible scar of destruction was carved into the world. The war chariot that Ares had bravely driven forward was shattered, and he was violently thrown, crashing into the mountainside. Ares! Even the clouds that had drifted serenely scattered, and the stars in the sky climbed higher in fear of Typhon. The horses of Helios' sun chariot, frightened, fled upward into the sky. As the sky gradually darkened, Zeus's lightning and Hephaestus's flames illuminated the world. Boom! Arcs! Once more, a blue thunderbolt struck Typhon's body, causing smoke to rise and delivering excruciating pain. As Typhon howled in agony, glowing arrows pierced his eyes. I'll aim for the right eye. You take the left. The next prey is a big one, brother. Apollo, the god of the sun, and Artemis, the goddess of the moon. The two children of Zeus each fired arrows imbued with the power of the sun and the moon. The twin gods, children of the chief god Zeus and the goddess of motherhood Leto, were both deities of archery and expert marksmen. Their arrows never missed their target. Next, the scorching flames of the blacksmith god enveloped Typhon's body, and a heavily armed goddess of wisdom struck the monster's ankle. The Olympian gods continued their coordinated attacks, but if not for those Morai's tricks, these wretches would have fallen long ago. The monster was still standing strong. Although victory was clearly in favor of the Olympian gods, Typhon was a doomsday weapon created with all the might of Gaia. Though he was weary and wounded, he would not fall easily. The sea god, sickened by the sight of Typhon still standing after the ongoing battle, decided to use all his power. If he could bury Typhon deep in the ocean, no matter how immortal the monster was, damn it, that accursed monster. Rise, waves. Poseidon, if you summon a wave, all the humans on land will die. As Poseidon prepared to call forth a massive tsunami to bring Typhon down, Hestia urgently stopped him. Victory was surely in their hands, so there was no need to sacrifice the lives of those on the earth. But how much longer can we keep this up? Just wait a little longer. A turn of events will soon occur. As Athena dodged Typhon's kicks, she shouted, but Poseidon was frustrated and sighed deeply. Typhon, like the gods, was immortal. With his ability to control the raging winds, he must have the divinity of a storm god. Though the Moirai had weakened him with their deception, the only ones who could still inflict meaningful damage were Zeus and Poseidon. Without the mighty force of one of the three chief gods, any wound inflicted would heal instantly, thanks to Typhon's incredible regenerative powers. Aside from those two, all of you are mere vermin. Ugh. Just then, as Typhon easily deflected Hera's attack and sneered, a pitch-black, ominous slash flew toward him. Typhon hastily raised his arm to block it, but divine blood, ichor, began to flow from his body. The golden liquid splattered on the ground, marking the wound on the storm god. This level of power, while weaker than Zeus, it was similar to being struck directly by Poseidon's trident. Typhon turned his head toward the direction the slash had come from, looking at the new threat on the battlefield. Approaching with a cold, murderous aura was a dark-haired god, wielding an old, worn-out helmet and a massive scythe. Hades! Our uncle succeeded. Now this monster is finished. That scythe was Scythe, the weapon Typhon had stolen from Zeus and secretly hidden away. The ultimate weapon, forged from adamantine, posed a serious threat even to Typhon. One of the three gods who rule the world, the king of the underworld, Hades, has rendered his verdict. Listen carefully, monster. The somber god continued as he brought the helmet up to his head. You will be imprisoned in Tartarus for eternity. As the king of the underworld fully donned his helmet, Typhon, who had been able to track even Hermes, the fastest of the Olympians, lost sight of Hades completely. You will be imprisoned in Tartarus for eternity. After finishing my provocation and donning the helm of darkness, I once again felt that familiar sensation. It was as if I had temporarily vanished from the world and stepped into another dimension. You scoundrel! Or have you hidden yourself? Boom! Typhon struck the spot where I had just been with his fist and swept the area with a storm, but I was no longer there. Zeus, let's go with the plan Athena suggested. All right, I'll send the clouds when I see an opening. The slash I landed on Typhon made it clear. Even though I could wound Typhon with the scythe, I couldn't decapitate him in one strike. No matter how weakened he was, Typhon was still a monster who had defeated the entirety of Olympus. His body was unimaginably tough. Even Zeus's world-rending lightning only caused him pain. Boom! Take this, Typhon! Arcs! When I infiltrated Olympus and retrieved the scythe while wearing the Helm of Darkness, which Typhon had stolen. I originally intended to sever Typhon's head myself. But when I arrived on the battlefield and asked the other gods to create an opening for me, only Athena voiced a different opinion. Uncle, only Zeus will be able to decapitate that monster. I have the scythe made of adamantine in my hand. Do you still say that? Yes. Reveal yourself to the monster briefly on purpose. Typhon is strong, but he's an inexperienced child when it comes to war. Even with the adamantine-made scythe, I couldn't deliver a fatal blow to Typhon. If we tried to exhaust him, he might flee. Zeus, who could decapitate him in one blow, was Typhon's primary concern. So, I would divert Typhon's attention toward me and secretly pass the scythe to Zeus. While Typhon was focused on the invisible assassin, I would hand the scythe to Zeus. That was the strategy of the goddess of war and wisdom. Hades, are you hiding like a rat? Gah! Hush! An unprecedentedly fierce storm swept across Mount Olympus. The monster was frantic, knowing that an assassin wielding the most threatening weapon was targeting him. Inevitably, his vigilance towards Zeus weakened. Weren't you fighting me, Typhon? Don't get distracted. The god of war, who could unleash his full power in a fierce battle. Ares, who had been thrown into the mountain, jumped back into the fray and charged at Typhon. See for yourself what the flames of the Olympus forge are like. The blacksmith and god of fire, Hephaestus, raised his hammer high, and the nearby ground was engulfed in flames. With the silent approval of the earth goddess, Demeter, the flames grew even stronger, reaching the clouds. Typhon responded by summoning another massive whirlwind, creating a gigantic firestorm that connected the earth and sky. Whoosh! Now Zeus, I'll hand over the scythe. I'll send the rainbow clouds. Place it there, brother. With Typhon's vision blurred by the firestorm, this was the perfect opportunity. A strange cloud filled with rainbow colors thickened, and I quietly placed the scythe into it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Grass! The snakes that made up Typhon's hair spewed lightning and venom wildly. He knew it himself. Victory was slipping away from him and toward the Olympian gods. If only it weren't for those detestable Moirai and the humans who dared to deceive him. Monster, this is Poseidon. Boom! Crash! Once again, Poseidon's trident, imbued with divine blue power, struck Typhon's face directly. But the real threat lay elsewhere. Hades, you, the so-called lord of the underworld, are nothing but a sneaky rat. The invisible assassin, holding the most powerful weapon, the scythe, was lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. The scythe was the ultimate weapon, capable of wounding Typhon even before he fell into the trap. If an opening presented itself, the adamantine-made blade would fly toward his neck. While battling the gods, Typhon remained on alert for the unseen assassin when he suddenly sensed something behind him. An ominous attack coming from behind. It was him, /Sh. Though his back was slashed by the sinister attack, and golden ichor spilled out, a smile formed on Typhon's lips. Assassins are only terrifying when they're unseen, and the attack had just revealed his location. Boom! A storm swirled around Typhon's foot as he kicked in the direction from which the slash had come. The ground was deeply torn apart, a thunderous sound echoed, and a small earthquake followed. Heh, I've got you now, scoundrel. G.U.H. Lying on the ground was Hades, with the Helm of Darkness knocked off. He was severely injured, ichor pouring from his mouth as he lay there. Typhon smiled victoriously and searched for the scythe. If he could just reclaim the scythe from Hades, he would have nothing to fear. This time, he would sever the tendons of every god and bury them in the ground. But the scythe was nowhere to be seen. With his godly, transcendent vision, he scanned the area around Hades, but curses! The cold smile of Hades, who seemed to be mocking him, entered Typhon's bewildered gaze. And then he felt a tremendous power behind him. Zeus! Though it was a struggle, it ends here, Typhon. Come to think of it, the lightning had stopped striking some time ago. Slash! Typhon's vision flipped upside down and then faded into darkness. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Boom! Phew! Zeus, holding the scythe, severed Typhon's head with a single strike. At that moment, the raging storm that had been howling fiercely suddenly came to a halt. Typhon's body crumbled to the ground, no longer moving, and his head rolled around, covered in dust. Yes, we have one. Gaia's ultimate weapon, which was aimed at Olympus, has been defeated by the combined efforts of the gods. If Typhon had gone straight to the underworld and released the Titans from Tartarus to fight alongside him, we might have been defeated. His one critical mistake was his arrogance, believing only in his own strength. Cough! Taking that hit on purpose has really taken a toll on my body. Look at the ichor flowing from my mouth. His power truly is immense. I bent down to pick up the scythe that had fallen to the ground along with Typhon's head. Was his neck so tough that even Zeus couldn't finish him off? I nudged his head with my foot to make sure he was truly down. The eyes that had glared so fiercely were now closed, and he wasn't moving. It seems he's in a temporary state of suspended animation. If you take a hit on purpose to create a clear opening, it will be even better. And if you also remove the helmet at that moment, you will surely deceive Typhon. Athena, you didn't hold a grudge and retaliate because of what happened during the Great Flood, did you? Did I make you do too much back then? Hades, are you okay? I'm fine, so don't cry, Hestia. We gods are immortal beings. You know that, right? Even though you're a seasoned god who's experienced the Titanomachy, you have such a soft heart. But when it comes to fighting, you're ruthless. This time was truly dangerous. I never imagined Gaia would create such a creature. Olympus has collapsed. What should we do? Well, we'll have to rebuild the mountain. The nymphs and lesser gods will have a tough time. As the battle ended, the gods who were treating their wounds and catching their breath began to gather one by one. As the gods gathered, golden ichor flowing from their bodies, the surrounding air began to glow with a golden radiance. It looks like Ares is seriously injured. Now that we've defeated Typhon, it's time to clean up. Hades, brother, I'll make sure you're properly compensated for coming to help Olympus. Zeus, of course, I'd like to be rewarded too. Poseidon, you as well. My arrows, like rays of sunlight, didn't even penetrate. I almost got hunted by the prey. The land that I see is my own child. It's completely destroyed. I'm sorry. There was no other choice. Lady Demeter, I will do my best to restore nature. Pan, let's postpone the revival of nature for now and check if there are any remaining enemies. Follow me? Yes, Lord Hades. I moved to search for any remaining enemies with Pan, who was hopping over on his goat legs. There was also a monster called Delphine that served under Typhon, so we should deal with that thoroughly while we're at it. Typhon, with his head cut off, is already incapacitated, so it's fine to leave him as he is. With just a few gods here, we should be able to handle whatever comes up. Soon, the small animals under Pan's command spread out in all directions to search for the monster. After listening to the whispers of the forest and the fields with his ear to the ground for a while, Pan called out to me. There's an unfamiliar animal in a certain cave. We found it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Following Pan to a nearby cave, I could indeed sense the presence of a monster. It was weaker than the power emanating from the monster Delphine I had seen a while ago, so there were indeed more remnants. It's this cave. As we entered the cave, Pan pointed to, we were greeted by a dog. A black dog lying on the ground, yawning lazily, with its eyes gleaming with the characteristic sharp gaze of a monster and the faint presence of Typhon's aura. It was definitely his offspring. Noticing our hostility as we entered the cave, the dog immediately stood up and started growling, which was kind of cute. But does the dog have 3 heads? It seems like a weak monster, so I will take care of it. As Pan extended his hand, the grass near the cave naturally intertwined, forming a sharp spear. The plant-based spear looked like it could pierce the 3-headed dog at any moment. Growl! Snarl! Oh! It caught the spear Pan through and bit into it. Even if it was just a minor monster, that's quite impressive to catch a half-hearted attack. Ah, the monster! Pan glanced at me, noticing me watching, and then focused green divine power in his hand. He probably thought he had embarrassed himself with me around. That's enough. I'll handle it. Huh? Lord Hades, there's no need for you to intervene. There's no need to use the scythe on such a weak creature. As I drew the stick sword and approached, the dog that had been biting the grass spear flinched and looked at me. The 3 heads quickly scanned my appearance and the sword, and then, yip, whimper, it rolled over on its back. It seems it's surrendering, Pan said, looking at the monster in disbelief. Since Pan is the god of nature and can understand the speech of lower animals and monsters, his interpretation is reliable, but I'm stunned that a monster with Typhon's blood would behave this way, and it's now cautiously approaching me. It gets close and then looks at me, sticking out its tongue and wagging its tail furiously. Pant, whimper. It says it's an honor to meet such a great being, and it'll do anything, so please spare its life. What the? Squeak, screech, yelp. What am I supposed to do with this? I looked down at the 3-headed dog frantically wagging its tail and showing its belly. It did look a bit cute like this, but, Hades, sir, shouldn't we dispose of it? It's already a strong creature, considering it could already withstand Pan's light attacks. I couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy about its future potential. However, from what Pan had observed, it seemed to prioritize survival instincts over savagery. Fine, follow me to the underworld. Whine, asterisk. As soon as I finished speaking, the beast foamed at the mouth and began thrashing wildly. Its tiny tail whipped around like a windmill, and tears streamed from its 3 pairs of eyes. I am the king of the underworld, Hades. I'm not taking you there to kill you. Yelp, woof. He says, I'll be completely loyal to you. The creature's tears had vanished, and now it circled around me, wagging its tail, an opportunistic beast through and through. Pan translated its response with a look of disbelief on his face. Honestly, this creature seemed like the type that would betray me without a second thought. Asterisk. I named the 3-headed dog Cerberus and headed to the underworld with it. I thought it might try to escape along the way, but it followed me quietly. I considered what job to give it and decided it would be best to use it as a guard dog. Sometimes, souls try to escape the underworld and return to the world of the living. Bite any soul that tries to sneak out. You can eat them if you want. Grr. Cerberus seemed to understand and nodded with all 3 heads. With its dark, sinister appearance, considerable strength, and poisonous fangs, it would make a fitting guard dog for the underworld. First, let me show you around the underworld. Stay close. Pant. All 3 heads were busy scanning the surroundings, taking in the sights. It seems Cerberus found the underworld's atmosphere quite agreeable. Now, we just needed to cross the Lethe and Styx rivers, and then we could reach my fortress. Hades is coming. Or not, he's coming. What on earth is that sound? Who dares to sit idly by the sacred river of forgetfulness, mumbling? The goddess Lethe. Hades. The goddess Lethe, who had been crouching by the banks of the river Lethe, noticed me and ran over. Hug dash. I've been waiting here all this time. You're not dead, right? I felt the soft skin of the goddess against my chest. Please, suddenly hugging me like this. Ahem. I think I'm going to die now. Oh no, I'm sorry. Being a god, I'm immortal, but I did take a beating from that Typhon. I'm still in some pain, especially around my chest, so if you could just back off a little. Ugh. Ichor. Ichor is coming out of my mouth. Asterisk. So, I returned to the fortress of the underworld. I was sitting on my throne, receiving reports of what had happened while I was fighting Typhon. The area around Olympus had been completely devastated by the battle, leading to many deaths. As a result, the workload in the underworld had temporarily increased. With the workload piling up and me, the highest authority, absent, the gods had grown increasingly weary. This eventually led to the goddess of the Styx glaring at me with hollow eyes. How could the king of the underworld, a major god, go to the battlefield himself? She lamented that the affairs of Olympus should have been left to them, that I didn't need to participate in such a dangerous battle, that if it was a battle fierce enough to spill ichor, I should have let Zeus handle it, that restoring his tendons should have been enough to maintain my dignity, and that despite being brothers, I should have properly negotiated for compensation. It seems this isn't just because of the busy work. I appreciate your concern for me, but her endless nagging was making my ears ring, and my face was growing as hollow as hers. Yes, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Sigh. Finally, she stopped. Well, I'm glad you're safe. I was so worried, sniff. The goddess Styx's face turned red, and she covered her mouth, turning away. I could see clear, transparent liquid flowing from her eyes and down her cheeks. Oh no, why are you crying now? Unable to bear the prickling gazes around me, I got up and tried to comfort the goddess of the Styx. Hades, my friend, you shouldn't make your wife worry like this. Angering the mistress of the underworld? That's bold even for a god. I wouldn't dare to match that. You might want to take a look over there. As if that weren't enough, I noticed that Lady Lethe was now glaring at me with a pout. I wish everyone would just be quiet. I'm a god who hasn't even gotten married, let alone dated anyone. Why are they all so interested in me? But Thanatos, you don't have any close goddesses either, do you? What's with that look? I don't like it. It's nothing. By the way, Hades, why did you bring that monster here? Morpheus pointed to Cerberus, who was sitting quietly, waiting for my orders. Let's see. I'll have him guard the gates to the underworld. Now, there will be no more souls escaping the underworld. But it's still a monster. A dangerous creature like that could one day betray you if it feels it's grown stronger. You don't need to worry about that. I had infused Cerberus with some of the underworld's power, transforming it into more of a divine beast rather than just a monster. Although its ferocity remained, it would never attempt to escape the underworld or disobey my orders. But what happened to Typhon? Asked the goddess Lethe, her arms crossed. Zeus personally sealed Typhon's body beneath Mount Etna. As for his severed head, I threw it into Tartarus. Hades, you wretched rat, where is my body? At the bottom of Mount Etna. Reattach my head to my body this instant? I did worry that Typhon's body might cause some havoc trapped under Mount Etna, but I could always check on it when I patrolled the mortal world. The Olympian gods also kept watch over the place, ensuring that his body would never be freed. At most, he might cause some damage to the surface with his tantrums. My goodness! His body is buried under a mountain, and his head is in Tartarus. Times like this really show that you're indeed the god of the underworld. But why is it that sometimes... What is he trying to say? Thanatos, who had locked eyes with me, quickly looked away. Ahem. I've heard that Hermes has recovered and is planning to return to Olympus. He said he wanted to thank you in person. Would you care to visit him? Hermes. Asterisk. When I entered the place where Hermes had been receiving treatment near the entrance to the underworld, I saw the messenger god, fully recovered and smiling. As expected of a god, he must have healed long ago and was waiting for me. Uncle Hades, I heard you defeated Typhon. It seems you've fully recovered. With the caduceus staff were two snakes intertwined, and his winged sandals back in place. He was now the Hermes I knew. When he was brought here covered in blood, thank you so much for aiding Olympus. My father will surely reward you greatly. No need for a reward, but take this scythe with you. I needed to return it to Zeus, but accidentally brought it to the underworld with me. So this is the scythe. I've never seen it before. Zeus will know what to do with it when you hand it over. Hermes accepted the scythe with both hands, examining it curiously. As a young god, he probably hadn't had the chance to see Olympus's most powerful weapon, made from adamant. Are you not going to use it yourself, Uncle? It's not mine to begin with. Unfortunately, the scythe doesn't suit my hand. Of course, having fought through the long war with the Titans, I can wield any weapon, but I feel more comfortable with a sword or spear. No matter how good or powerful a weapon is, if the user isn't skilled with it, it can't fully display its power. This weapon is better suited for Zeus. With a slight shake of my head, I signaled to the messenger god, and he began preparing to leave the underworld. Well then, I, Hermes, the messenger of all, will be returning now. Next time I visit the underworld, I'll be sure to bring a gift for you, Uncle. All right, off you go. Even your son was worried about you. As I watched Hermes rise into the air, a soul guard came rushing towards me. Lord Hades, the goddess of the rainbow, Iris, is at the entrance to the underworld on behalf of Olympus. Iris had been visiting quite often lately. Since Hermes had been injured and laid up in the underworld, Zeus must have had no choice but to send Iris. After a moment of waiting, the beautiful goddess with rainbow wings entered. I greet the Lord of the underworld once again. Lord Zeus has sent me to invite you to Olympus as a token of gratitude for your participation in the battle against Typhon. He's asking me to come to Olympus? I wish he wouldn't bother me with such requests. I'm not one of Zeus's subjects. As I frowned, Iris broke into a nervous sweat and quickly added more explanation. Lord Hephaestus mentioned that a custom weapon must be forged directly in his dedicated forge. Also, since Typhon has been defeated, a victory banquet will be held at Olympus. It would be an honor if you could attend and grace the occasion with your presence. So Zeus had ordered Hephaestus to make a weapon for me, but I already have the stick sword, and a banquet on Olympus that does sound somewhat appealing. It wouldn't be bad to attend a banquet on the clouds for a change. Who knows what might happen with most of the gods gathered in one place, so it might be a good idea to go and check out the atmosphere. Although I'm a bit concerned about the affairs of the underworld. Compared to the time of the Great Flood, things have become quite organized and stable, so I can afford to be away for a little while. All right, I'll go now. Then I shall escort you, Lord Hades. Iris bowed respectfully and created a rainbow, forming a passage to Olympus. No matter how many times I see it, that power is truly enviable. As I crossed Iris's rainbow, my body was transported to Olympus. It had been a while since I last felt the soft, yet weighty sensation of standing on the clouds. A world filled entirely with white clouds stretched out before me, with the Olympian palace visible in the distance. It appeared to be made of white marble, but in reality, it was a structure forged from metals by Hephaestus and the Cyclopes. The enormous temple, or rather, the divine palace that seemed to reach the Milky Way in the sky. Why does it look so intact? It should have been half destroyed by Typhon, left in a wretched state. Hearing my mutter, Iris sighed and responded. Lord Zeus ordered Lord Hephaestus to lead the complete and rapid reconstruction of the palace. A valiant warrior who calls forth flames in battle, and Olympus's greatest blacksmith. Just thinking about Hephaestus being worn out from rebuilding that place made me laugh a little. Iris didn't look too good either. Ah, I see. She must have had a rough time too. I cast a sympathetic glance at the goddess of the rainbow and walked towards the entrance of the Olympian palace. It was clearly more extravagant than the entrance to the underworld where I reside. The pillars were covered in gold, engraved with dragon and lightning motifs, and the handles were made of a strange, glowing metal. A little way off from the door, the soft glow of the river of starlight, the Milky Way, flowed. Oh, that decoration was designed after much deliberation by Lord Apollo and Lord Hephaestus. As I stood admiring the work, it was clear that it had been crafted by gods with a keen aesthetic sense. Iris began explaining, but I was ready to head inside, so I listened half-heartedly and pushed the door open. Slee-eyed, the floor of the Olympian palace was made of clouds. So, instead of the unpleasant creaking sound, the door opened smoothly. Olympus's banquet was filled with numerous gods and attendants coming and going. Many ornate tables and chairs were arranged, and ambrosia, the food of the gods, was neatly served on plates. Black hair and eyes, with that chilling aura, The Lord of the Underworld has actually come to Olympus. I heard Lord Zeus invited him, but still, ignoring the murmuring lower gods and attendants, I looked around. Tingling ting ting. Wow, Shup, you're making it hard to hear the music. First, I noticed the god of music, Apollo, sitting on a chair with a golden cup of nectar by his side, playing his lyre. Surrounding him were goddesses and female attendants, listening to the music with infatuated expressions. Here, pour me some nectar. Yes, right away. Whenever the gods held out their cups, the attendants, wearing easily movable chitons, scurried across the clouds to pour nectar from a bottle. They were the attendants of Hebe, the goddess of youth, who managed the nectar and ambrosia. She, the daughter of Zeus and Hera, was always busy directing the attendants during the gods' banquets. Hebe, oh, Lord Hades, you've arrived. She greeted me with a radiant smile and bowed her head. After exchanging some formalities with my niece, whom I hadn't seen in a while, I reached out to pick up a nearby golden cup. Or rather, I was about to, had the sea god with blue hair not reached out first. Hey Hades, to be honest, I didn't think you'd actually come to Olympus. Poseidon, the sea god who ruled over the oceans, grinned and downed the nectar in one gulp. In his other hand, he held his prized trident. What do you think of Olympus's banquet? It's just another banquet. Is there some problem? As Poseidon picked up some ambrosia from a plate, he said to me, would you consider attending a banquet at my palace next time? There are things I can't discuss here. The second in command of Olympus glanced around, his expression hardening slightly, and quietly conveyed his message to me. I subtly nodded in agreement. I'll send one of my servants to the entrance of the underworld later. I don't mind. Yes, I had a feeling something like this would happen, which is why I went out of my way to attend this banquet. Just by being in a gathering of gods for a short time, you can catch all sorts of news, secrets I don't know, and shady stories. As the king of the underworld, I cannot live with my eyes and ears shut. After making plans with Poseidon, we engaged in casual conversation and naturally moved in different directions. I could feel the eyes of the crowd briefly focus on us before scattering as the two main gods who ruled over the sea and the underworld gathered. It seemed Zeus, who was hosting this banquet, was planning to make an appearance shortly. He would likely show up when enough gods had gathered, raise his cup, and set the mood. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Hades, I didn't expect you to come. Why is it so surprising that I would come to Olympus? With hair that evoked the color of ripe grain, a mix of auburn and golden hues, a goddess of striking beauty with an expression that didn't quite match. This was Demeter, the goddess of the earth and one of the 12 Olympians. She was drinking nectar while gazing down at the earth through the clouds. You're always busy ruling the underworld, so naturally, I assumed you wouldn't come. It's not like I'm constantly buried in work. Even if she didn't believe me, it was true. In fact, you could even say that I'm shirking my duties to take a break right now. She turned her gaze back to the world below. The earth seen from the divine palace atop Mount Olympus wasn't the usual scenery. No, it wasn't. Are those working on the half-destroyed Mount Olympus your subordinates? I just assigned some minor tasks to the lesser gods and nymphs. Well, restoring Mount Olympus after it was shattered by Typhon doesn't seem like a minor task, though. Aren't the nymphs over there already looking disgruntled? I paused to listen to what those working below were saying. Ugh, how much longer do we have to do this? This is a task from Lady Demeter. If we don't do it properly, our true forms will wither away. I'm a dryad, too, so I can't risk angering Lady Demeter. Dryads are nymphs who dwell within trees. They have long lifespans, but unlike the gods, they are not immortal, and they cannot stray far from their trees. So, they have no choice but to toil under Demeter's orders to avoid withering away. If they don't want to shrivel up overnight, they have to do what they're told. You should go easier on them. The earth is my child, and they depend on me to live. What's wrong with asking them to do this much? Demeter looked as if she couldn't understand, but I hope she shows a bit of mercy. If she worked in the underworld once, she'd learn to appreciate the struggles of the underlings. The king of the gods, Lord Zeus of Olympus, is entering. A lesser god who commands the winds raised his voice and shouted. At the same time, a muscular male god with golden hair, whom I recognized, appeared, Zeus. It seems everyone is enjoying themselves. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The sweet melody that had been softly playing from Apollo's lyre ceased. The gods who had been feasting on nectar and ambrosia paused their meals and bowed their heads in respect. As all eyes turned to the king of the gods, he spoke once more. I, Zeus, as the host of this Olympus feast, will keep my words brief. Clearing his throat, he spoke in a grand voice filled with divine power. We recently faced a formidable foe, Typhon, but all the gods here united their strength and successfully repelled that monster. Everyone knew that this feast was a celebration of their victory over Typhon. Let us take this moment to honor the gods who made significant contributions in the battle against Typhon. First, Hermes. Hermes, a youthful god with a cheerful demeanor, holding a caduceus, stepped forward and bowed his head. Zeus patted him on the shoulder, said something to him, and then raised his voice again. Hermes here, despite suffering severe injuries at the hands of Typhon, succeeded in seeking reinforcements from the underworld. If it weren't for Hermes, Olympus might have been defeated. As a reward, he will receive a pair of greaves crafted by Hephaestus. And, as expected of the messenger god, Hermes did well indeed. If Lord Hades hadn't reclaimed the scythe, we would have been in real danger. I quietly watched as Zeus praised his son, Hermes, for his achievements. Hermes wore an awkward smile, as if he thought the praise was too much. Next, the goddess of wisdom and my daughter, Athena, stepped forward. As expected, Athena, fully armored, confidently strode forward and knelt on one knee before Zeus. During the battle with Typhon, Athena's strategy had indeed been effective. The plan that so skillfully deceived Typhon was your idea, proving once again that the title of Goddess of Wisdom is well deserved. Earlier, Zeus mentioned that he would honor those who deserved recognition. The word honor implies a superior commending an inferior. So, it's no surprise that names like Poseidon, who dealt significant damage to Typhon, or mine, weren't mentioned by Zeus. Although I acknowledge Zeus as the king of the gods due to his overwhelming strength, we are almost equal as the three chief gods. Ares, you fought bravely, befitting the god of war. And well, since he's praising the accomplishments of his sons and daughters, there's no reason to rain on his parade. As Zeus went around praising the gods, I took a sip of nectar. Is Olympus nectar different? Why does it taste sweeter than when I drink it in the underworld? That concludes the honors for those who courageously stood against Typhon. I, Zeus, shall take my leave now, so please continue to enjoy the feast. Rumble! Zeus vanished from the banquet hall with a thunderous sound. It seems he left because he was considerate enough to think the lesser gods might feel uncomfortable with the ruler of Olympus around. But did he really have to leave with thunder? To me, it was just noisy. Hermes, please tell us more about how you escaped from Typhon's grasp. I wasn't here on Olympus at the time, but was that monster really that strong? As expected of the goddess of wisdom, Lady Athena, Ares later lets ride the chariot together. Today's heroes, those who excelled in the battle against Typhon, were surrounded by many gods. There were plenty eager to hear their tales of valor or to take this chance to build connections with the 12 Olympians. Lord Poseidon, even though Lord Zeus didn't mention it, So, whose child are you? For the record, no one approached me, who was sipping nectar in a corner with Demeter. Even the ferocious Poseidon had gods talking to him. So why? Demeter, who had been watching me, chuckled softly and spoke up. Isn't it obvious? If you displease Hades, you get cast into Tartarus, and if you please him, you get dragged to the underworld. Who would dare approach you? Did I say my thoughts out loud? It's written all over your face, Hades. Of course, it's not hard to understand. Aside from the 12 gods who can sit on the golden thrones of Olympus, there are plenty who fear and revere me. The underworld, the land of the dead, is deep, dark, terrifying, gloomy, and grim. But still, it's a feast, and there are only so many gods to talk to, so it's a bit boring with nothing interesting happening. At least I got acquainted with a few newly born gods. To be precise, they nervously came to greet me, and I let them off with a simple response. Loosen up your expression. You look even more gloomy. Like you're about to drag someone off to Tartarus? I'm not. Demeter commented on my appearance with a slightly awkward expression. Isn't this what they call discrimination against the underworld? High above, where humans look up in awe, the banquet of the Olympian gods isn't so different from theirs. This time, humans prayed to me for wind, so I granted them a little mercy. Lady Artemis, you are as beautiful as ever today. I'll have something to say to the nymphs once this banquet is over. Could Typhon really have been that strong? While enjoying ambrosia and nectar, the food of the gods, they conversed. Would you like to go somewhere quiet and continue our conversation? Whenever you desire. When a man and woman caught each other's eye, they would leave for a more private spot. I heard that a nymph under your command offered a rather useful weapon. Are you talking about my sword? How about betting it on a round of Pancration? I'll wager one of the buffaloes I've been raising. Are you two about to fight? In that case, I'm betting on. They made amusing wagers through Pancration, the combat sport. Terpsichore, you truly are amazing. You flatter me, Lord Poseidon. That dance was fitting for one of the muses who governs the arts and sciences. They also enjoyed the arts by listening to music played by Apollo or dancing. In the midst of this divine banquet, Hades, are you really not going to play with me? And would you please take off that girdle? It's giving me a headache. But without it, you wouldn't even give me a glance? Was resisting the temptations of Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love, whom everyone else admired. Of all things, she had worn the cestus, the magic girdle of seduction. Because of that, my head was throbbing. Just get away from me, please. Still, I knew she wasn't using her full power to charm me, but was only half-seriously toying with me. TSK, how boring. Are you really going to keep this up? Go back to your husband, Hephaestus. Although, it seemed like she was half-serious, which was a bit troublesome. I mean, why are you doing this when you already have a husband? Please, stay as far from me as the distance between the underworld and Olympus. Must you really be like this when the goddess of beauty is going this far? Aphrodite crossed her arms, striking a sultry pose that emphasized certain areas. The male gods around couldn't take their eyes off her. One day, this is going to end in disaster. I'd rather receive affection than worry. I'll be taking my leave for today. From her perspective as the goddess who governs the powerful emotion of love, she probably found it unsettling that a god who ranks among the top 3 deities seemed to be completely out of her reach. Annoyed by the fact that her beauty and love couldn't touch me, Aphrodite frowned deeply as she left. Wow, did I just witness that? Did you really just reject the goddess of beauty, Uncle Hades? Hermes, holding the caduceus, approached me, marveling with his mouth agape. The snakes on his staff were also turning their heads in the direction Aphrodite had left. I don't think I would have rejected her. Wouldn't it be fun to spend a night with her? Sigh. Hermes whispered slyly with a lewd expression, but I wasn't interested at all. Why would I enjoy a tryst with a goddess who is both a husband and children? Besides, Hephaestus has done nothing wrong to me. So, why did you come? Hephaestus was working in the forge and said he wanted to see you, Lord Hades. I am, after all, a messenger. Zeus ordered Hephaestus to craft my weapon, didn't he? It seems there's something he needs my help with in the process. I'd better go then. I put down the golden cup filled with nectar and walked out. Wasn't Hephaestus's forge on this side of Olympus? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After passing through a makeshift Milky Way, presumably created by Iris diligently drawing water, walking through densely packed white clouds for quite some time. Please slow down a bit. Just as some lower-ranking gods, who seemed to be in love, passed by me, I saw Hephaestus's forge. Clang, clang. The sound of metal being struck, heat so intense that even a god could feel it, and flames soaring high into the sky. The forge walls were filled with all sorts of divine weapons, the kind that could spark wars if they fell into human hands. That sword over there emits flames with every swing, and that blue metal armor seems to harden more with each impact. You've arrived, uncle. While admiring the weapons touched by Hephaestus, he appeared and welcomed me. Despite his limp, he was a muscular and robust god, holding a hammer in his hand. All of these are failures, so I'm embarrassed to show them to you. But no matter how you looked at it, even one of these could cause chaos if it fell to the mortal realm. Still, given that he's the blacksmith god who made Aphrodite's magical girdle and Hermes' winged sandals, it was understandable from his perspective. So when I asked him why he sought me out, Hephaestus scratched his cheek with a simple expression and said, I was making a bident, a spear, for my uncle, and I was hoping you could imbue it with some divine power. A bident? I did use spears a lot during the war with the Titans. Did Zeus order him to make one after seeing that? Are you going to make my weapon a trident like Poseidon's? No, this is a spear with 2 prongs. But I already have this thick sword, so I don't really need a weapon. I unfastened the sheath from my waist and handed the stick sword to him. The blacksmith god examined the blade for a moment and then smiled at me. This sword is quite exceptional, but it's not on par with the trident or the thunderbolt. However, the bident I'm about to show you will easily stand comparison with those. Oh! Hephaestus spoke confidently, then donned his iron gloves and brought out the bident from within the forge. I reached out to the still red-hot spear, which retained some heat. SSSS, as the dark and shadowy divine power emanated from me and touched the bident, its surface was slightly shaved away. But only for a moment, as the bident soon accepted the power and turned black. It was clearly extraordinary, even at a glance, but this wasn't the end. Please wait a moment. The finishing touches are still left. Hephaestus carefully took back the spear and went back inside the forge. Soon, I began hearing the sounds of metal being struck and the clash of different forces. Clang! SSSSSS! Bang! Clang! Only the Cyclopes trio, who crafted my kaini, could rival Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths. I waited patiently for the work to be completed. By the time Helios' sun chariot had reached the world's edge, and it was now the turn of the moon goddess Selene, Hephaestus, who had been deeply engrossed in his work, called out to me. It's finished. Give it a swing. The spear had a shiny black surface. Just looking at it emitted a chilling aura, but to me, it felt like the familiar presence of the underworld. As if entranced, I grasped the bident with my right hand. The spear emitted a soft resonance, as if recognizing its owner. As I infused it with a slight bit of power, it unleashed an aura several times stronger. The ominous black divine energy enveloped the bident, and after a moment of staring at it, I swung it fiercely toward the sky. Quank! A massive hole was torn through the clouds over Olympus, and the bident shot straight beyond the sky with overwhelming force. Truly, this is the best. I don't envy Poseidon's trident at all. Do you like it? It's more than just liking it, and with the divine power inscribed, you should be able to summon it from anywhere, no matter how far away it is. Wait, it has a feature like that too? I'll never lose this thing. It's really not inferior to Poseidon's trident at all. I feel like I should give him some kind of reward for this. When I asked the satisfied Hephaestus if he had any requests, he replied, I'm glad you like it. There is one favor I have, though. Go ahead, if it's a wish I can grant. I'll do my best. Please use that bident often and spread the word that I, Hephaestus, crafted it. Isn't that a given? I hope that it becomes widely known that this bident, which rivals the 3 great divine weapons forged by the Cyclopes brothers, was crafted by Hephaestus, the greatest blacksmith in the world. Seeing the blacksmith god speak with sparkling eyes, I assured him that I would definitely fulfill his request. Since he seems to desire the honor of creating an outstanding weapon, that shouldn't be difficult to accomplish. But considering that he's the best in the world, aren't the Cyclopes brothers a notch above? I'll find out if I pit it against the kaini that Arjesh made for me. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Clang, clang, clang. Back in the underworld, I clashed the bident against the old and shabby-looking helmet I held in one hand. The 2 weapons, nearly equal in strength, sparked as they collided. Kaya! Hades! You're testing your weapons on that precious helmet again. The goddess Styx, passing by, shrieked and scolded me. But just a few more times. The sword I made, too. Who tests their weapons on such a thing? Oh, by the way, this bident was crafted by the greatest blacksmith in Olympus, Hephaestus. The goddess Styx stormed toward me, furiously rebuking. Her hands flailed, and she stomped her feet so much that the underworld might end up with a hole. No, never mind. Bident or not, you should be carefully storing your kaini in a treasure vault, not constantly subjecting it to abuse. I told you that last time too. I tried to change the subject naturally, but it didn't work. Today, it was expected that the underworld would be extremely busy, but Hades' office was surprisingly quiet. This was because mortal nations had been established all over the world, bringing stability to the living realm and reducing the number of deaths. Although many still died from various monsters, accidents, or savage animals, it was manageable. However, I still had one concern. We still haven't located the Gigantes? Yes, we haven't been able to find any trace of the monsters you mentioned. These were the very Gigantes who, according to prophecy, could only be defeated with the help of a mortal hero. I had tried to locate and eliminate them in advance, or at least reduce their numbers, but is Lady Gaia providing them a hiding place until their strength grows? Even Zeus of Olympus had no idea, and searching the entire underworld had turned up nothing. The only fortunate thing was that the day when the Gigantes would challenge the gods again was likely far in the future. It would take a long time for them to grow their power with Gaia's help. Gaia knows that the gods defeated even Typhon, so she would only send them when she was sure of victory. Before that, a mortal hero must emerge. Cadmus seems promising, but he's too busy searching for his sister. As I was lost in thought, a soul guard entered from outside and reported that a visitor had arrived. Someone at the entrance of the underworld, half fish and half godlike in appearance, claimed to be Poseidon's messenger. I realized that the time Poseidon had mentioned had come. He had said during a banquet in the sea that he had something to discuss. I could guess what it might be, but I decided to go and listen. After instructing the soul guard to bring the guest in, I unfurled a parchment to examine possible locations in the mortal realm where the Gigantes might be hiding. Wherever they are hiding, if I find them, I'll make them all citizens of the underworld. As I indulged in these grim thoughts, examining the parchment, Poseidon's messenger arrived in my office. The moment the door opened, he bowed deeply in greeting. Lord of the underworld, it's an honor to meet you. I am Triton, the only legitimate son of Lord Poseidon. Yes, I am Hades. The male god introduced himself as Triton. His appearance was covered in scales, with gills and something that looked like a dolphin's tail. He seemed like a monstrous humanoid, but given his birthplace in the sea, it was understandable. And legitimate son. That means he's the child of Poseidon's lawful wife, Amphitrite. Is Poseidon's banquet ready? Then lead the way. Yes, I will escort you to my father's palace. He's pretty brisk. Poseidon would be pleased. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. This place is a beach on the surface. When I was invited to Amphitrite and Poseidon's wedding last time, a massive whale, one of Poseidon's retinue, carried me to the golden palace under the sea. I thought we might summon the whale again to travel beneath the waves, but Triton pulled out a conch shell from his waist and blew it. Pull! A majestic sound echoed from the black and white conch shell, and soon after, two enormous seahorses emerged from the ocean's surface. These are my seahorses. They are blessed by my father and can move quickly underwater. A type of divine beast, imbued with Poseidon's power. The seahorses were equipped with saddles and reins, as if designed for someone to ride. I mounted one of the seahorses, feeling the rare sensation of seawater touching my legs. Now, we shall proceed to the palace. Let's go. At Triton's command, the seahorses began to descend into the sea. SSSS. At the same time, a bubble-like barrier formed around me, pushing the surrounding water away. A consideration from Poseidon, allowing me to stay dry and breathe underwater. When I was invited to the sea god's wedding, I had to use my own power to repel the water, but now there's no need for that. convenient, bubbling. As we entered the ocean, countless fish swam around in the blue world. Deep blue mackerel, playful dolphins, sea turtles. As we descended further, the seabed was covered in dense seaweed, with small fish busily moving among them. I also saw a half-man, half-fish being, who appeared to be one of Poseidon's servants, harvesting seaweed. The seahorse carrying me descended even deeper. It felt as if the water was parting naturally, guiding us somewhere. As we reached the deep ocean where sunlight barely penetrated, everything around was darkness. However, with divine sight, everything was visible. The landscape of what humans call the deep sea was quite worth seeing. They fear the ocean depths and constantly offer sacrifices to Poseidon. But here, clear, intelligent-looking jellyfish playfully waved their tentacles. And more of Poseidon's half-human, half-fish servants came into view. Look at this, ha! This turtle is so cute. Should we take it and raise it? Huh? But over there, some beautiful nymphs, the sea nymphs known as nereids, were giggling as they looked at a sea turtle, but then they noticed us and were startled. They quickly recognized the bubble of protection granted by Poseidon and my imposing appearance, hastily bowing their heads in respect. Triton smirked and waved his free hand, not holding the reins, causing the nereids to blush and quickly swim away. I guess that's considered handsome down here in the sea. It's hard to understand from an underworld perspective, though. We descended even further, probably deeper than what mortals would call the deep sea. At this depth, even a demigod born and raised on land would struggle to survive. But Poseidon's children wouldn't have any issues. As I leisurely observed my surroundings, a shark man approached. He had a humanoid upper body covered only by a loincloth, but with webbed feet instead of regular ones, a shark fin, and sharp teeth. The harpoon he held in his hand looked sharp enough to pierce an enemy even in these deep waters. Judging by his strength, he seemed to be a guard captain near the palace. Greetings to the Lord of the Underworld. I am Andrianos, blessed by Lord Poseidon. I nodded and raised one hand, at which point he bowed to Triton as well. Lord Triton, well then, is the banquet fully prepared? Yes, everything is perfectly ready. After a brief exchange, the seahorse started moving again. It felt as though we were being naturally drawn in by some force, as if the ocean currents were guiding us to the seabed. How long had we been traveling? Finally, Poseidon's palace came into view. The dazzling golden palace beneath the sea. Even though it should have been too deep for sunlight to reach, the palace was brightly lit. The grand structure was adorned with white pillars, and colorful coral surrounded it. I also noticed a translucent barrier enveloping the entire palace. That barrier seemed to be of a similar nature to the protection Poseidon granted the seahorses I was riding. Hades, welcome to my palace. And there, standing with his arms wide open in front of the palace's grand entrance, was Poseidon, the sea god with blue hair. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The banquet Poseidon had prepared was no less impressive than an Olympian feast. Pull. There were quite a few seaweed dishes, given we were underwater, and the merfolk, with their fish-like lower bodies, created sweet melodies using conch shells. I exchanged greetings with Poseidon's sons and the lesser gods under his command, familiarizing myself with their faces. A lot of new gods have been born under the sea, too. Triton seems to be playing with sharks, munching on seaweed dishes and ambrosia while watching the underwater entertainers wasn't too bad. A talking octopus juggling multiple shells in the air was quite amusing to watch. Aya, what's that sound now? From a distant, deep part of the ocean, I heard the voice of an enraged woman. This divine power is stirring the ocean currents and causing fierce waves? Ahem, it seems Amphitrite is at it again. Is there a problem with your wife? Well, she tends to react like that whenever she discovers I've spent a night elsewhere. Poseidon spoke with a wry smile. So, your wife found out you cheated on her, and now she's furious? What's the difference between you and Zeus? Anyway, Hera and Amphitrite really have it rough. No wonder the Lady of the Sea didn't show up to the banquet. Poseidon, holding a blue goblet filled with nectar, stroked his beard as he spoke. I'll have to figure out how to appease her again. But at least there's no risk of the sea's mistress being replaced. Isn't it less about the worry of replacing the sea's mistress and more about the fact that you cheated and she's angry? It seems he's no better than Zeus. I wonder which of the two will take on the divine role of infidelity. Sighing, I took a swig of nectar. It really does seem like the taste of nectar changes depending on the place. How can nectar taste this refreshing here? It feels like drinking. What was it? Soda in a previous life. Staying here and enjoying the banquet wouldn't be so bad, but it's time to get to the main point. I put down the blue goblet and made eye contact with Poseidon. Well, I already have an idea, but go ahead and tell me the reason you invited me. Why ask when you already know? Your guess is correct, Hades. He grinned, flashing an ambitious smile. Of course, it's about joining forces to overthrow Zeus. I knew it.